What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the You Know Ball podcast. I am your host, Trill Bro Dude, and we are finally done with the regular season. Please make the regular season shorter, NBA, because the last 10 to 15 games were truly just brutal to get us here to this point, but we had a very crazy last day of the season that we are going to talk about today. But before we talk about that, let's get into our sponsor. That is Underdog Fantasy. You can use the promo code SLOP, S-L-O-P, for a $100 deposit match today when you sign up. I'm going to pull up the pick'ems just because, obviously, I've been fucking horrible on the pick'ems recently. So we're going to riff here. We have the play-in pick'ems. They put them up a day early, so you can go on there and you can do pick'ems for higher or lower on players' stats that are playing in this game. There were a few that stood out to me, but I feel like I don't know if I can trust myself anymore after the last few episodes where I've just been absolutely bombing. So maybe you want to fade some of my picks. On the last day of the season, I did one, and I did higher for Johnny Davis points as a bit, but he has been actually scoring a lot recently. And then I also did higher on Jaden McDaniels points, and they both went lower on there. So not a great last day of the season for me, but let's get into this. The one that really stood out to me was Jimmy Butler threes made. It's at 0.5 right now. Jimmy last year in the playoffs made a three in 14 of the 17 games they played, I believe. So that is a pretty good indicator that I think that, and they played the Hawks in the first round last year. So do you think that we should go higher on that?
I think that seems like a pretty solid one to me.
Yeah.
Higher for sure. I'm looking at some of these other ones.
I was going to say Trae Young.
I was going to say, can we fade Trae? Can we fade Trae? Because he's fade Trae?
Yeah, because he's going up against the Heat, and as we know, he sucks ass against the Heat.
Yeah, he sucks ass against the Heat. Rat mode. They're like perfectly contained to be like physical with him. He won't get foul calls. If he does get foul calls, the Heat are cooked.
And also worth noting, if this game starts to go south for the Hawks, I can totally see Trae Young quitting. Just the way that this season has gone for the Hawks. It doesn't feel like last year where they're coming off the Eastern Conference Finals. They, they struggled in the regular season, but they fought their way. He did play really well in those two play-in games last year, but they were against a banged-up Cleveland team, and I can't even remember who they played in the first play-in game. But my point here is that Trae tends to get up for these big games, but he really struggles against Miami. With the points for him, it's 24.5. So I went and I looked at his stats against the Heat this year. He went lower than that twice, and he went higher than that twice. So it's but he barely got over both times. So he was pretty solidly on the lower end for the games where he was lower. So I think that I'm going to say, do we want to fade him and say lower?
I kind of want to go higher on turnovers. Like
4.5?
That's a lot, but also
rat mode,
But,
so we go higher on 4.5 turnovers. So we anticipate Trae Young having at least 5 turnovers tomorrow.
Yeah.
Jimmy Butler making at least 1 3. You put $10 on that, you can win 30, and I think that's pretty solid. I mean, this is just us trying to get our bearings back because
we're trying to get our groove back. Well, you know what's funny is one of us will be correct, the other one will be wrong, and we always listen to the wrong one. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so we've just got to once we start having a consensus on one of these, we've got to say, okay, fade that. We need to fade ourselves.
If it's the Costanza thing. Do the exact opposite, not to get too Zach Lowe here, but do the exact opposite of whatever your intuition tells you. And if we come back on Wednesday or Thursday, whenever we record next, and we lost that, I think what we're going to have to do is just completely fade whatever our thoughts are. But I think that hopefully is a safe enough play that we're good for the first play-in game that is being played tomorrow. The Hawks and the Heat. If you want to join me, I'll be on playback for that game. I'll be streaming for all of the play-in games and then the first weekend of the playoffs as well. On Underdog, you can also do the dance, which is their playoff drafts. They're a lot of fun. We did them on the podcast before, so definitely check that out. Promo code SLOT, $100 deposit match today. Please support the program if you are able to. All right, well, we got to get right into this, Sam. Day 82 of the regular season.
Yep.
I was expecting there to be a little bit of drama just because teams are fighting for their playoff lives. That we essentially had the first play-in game, right?
Yeah.
Wolves Pelicans for the right to play in the 7-8 game. And it did not disappoint. Jaden McDaniels checked out of the game and broke his hand, and that was not the most insane thing that happened during the game when he punched a wall. Rudy Gobert also obviously got into it with Kyle Anderson and punched him in the chest after, as Woj said, he called him a bitch in quotes. I don't know if you saw that Woj tweet. He called him a bitch. And all anyone can ever talk about, all anyone can ever think of, Gobert suspended for the play-in game now. This trade is just getting worse by the day. I don't even think that, like, if those picks are really good, this is going to be by far the worst trade we've ever seen. The first pick is probably already going to be in the top 15. But on top of that, you have a dip in production from Gobert. A lot of people saying they'd already take Walker Kessler over Gobert. And now just to compound all of it, he's trying to fight his own teammates. So is this like, I just don't know how this could get any worse for the Wolves.
Yeah, I mean, I think of, when it comes to like bad trades, you obviously think of, the two Nets trades that doomed them, the Dame Lillard for a half year of Gerald Wallace. You think about, obviously Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett, old Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett for the 3 firsts and a pick swap. Yeah, I guess that's what's crazy to me is like, that's like really not even that much considering how much bad salary the Nets were sending back.
Yeah.
Like if you look back at that Nets trade, I mean, I know that they weren't getting that much for like, the just like where they were though, and just the lack of leverage. You know what I'm saying? Like the thing is, the Celtics had all the leverage in that fucking trade. Why do the Rudy Gobert? There's no leverage. There's no reason to do anything. They gave up way too much. I don't know. I mean, I think other contenders might be like the Eddie Curry trade for the Knicks, like way back in the day, just in terms of like damage. But a lot of this stuff is kind of tripling down. I mean, the Eddie Curry trade, I think the LaMarcus Aldridge pick and the Joakim Noah pick went back, which is very like crazy. Like,
oh my God, that's
people
brutal.
kind of forget that. I don't know how that pick ended up in Portland. I'm trying to remember how that pick ended up in Portland, but
it was draft night. Tyrus Thomas was traded for LaMarcus Aldridge on draft night, if I remember correctly, in 2005 draft.
Oh my God, dude.
Yeah.
Who was that? Was that the Hornets trading down or up or something?
So the Bulls
or
and the Bulls and the Blazers just swap picks, if I remember correctly, and there was like something else that was thrown into there that incentivized the Bulls to make that trade. Well,
that was the Knicks pick. That's a pretty fucking damaging trade, just because of like the players that ended up getting picked. Like I know Joakim Noah, like it got bad at the end, but he got like MVP votes in a season and was like a
defensive player
of the year. Yeah, like so. I don't know. Like there's been a lot of damaging trades, but just in terms of like, especially with where everyone else on the team is, I don't think we've ever seen a team sink a young core with a bad trade like this before. Is the crazy thing. And like Ant is insane. He's they won that fucking game when Jaden McDaniels broke his hand.
I know. They won the game. Rudy Gobert. They don't have Naz Reid as it is.
Yes.
Rudy Gobert gets sent home. They're like, go home, dude.
Yeah.
They're
gonna win the play-in game because Gobert isn't gonna be with the team.
Just because the vibes are gonna be so much better.
The vibes are gonna be better. Yeah, like the team just makes more sense too when he's not out there. Like,
so it certainly helps with the clutter of the double big thing. I totally agree with that. But especially when you talk about the postseason, I mean, my first thought was Rudy was getting nervous about another postseason flame out and was like, let's take myself out of this. Just punch Kyle Anderson, who, like, and you say, like, it sunk a young core. I'm just thinking about, like, let's just say the Wolves, instead of Conley's first move and the new ownership's first move being like, let's go all in on a star, Rudy Gobert, let's sit on this. Let's wait. Let's see what we have with this team first. You would still have Walker Kessler, who you drafted, because they did not draft him for Utah. It wasn't like it was a draft night trade, right? Right. They would still have Walker Kessler. So if you wanted to do the two big things, you could totally do that if you wanted to.
That's so fucked up, man.
You would still have a shooter off the bench in Malik Beasley for your spacing purposes, which is something that I think that they could use. They would still have McDaniels, obviously, on the team, a young athletic wing, one of the best, 3-and-D-ish kind of wings in the NBA, certainly one of the best defenders in the NBA. And then you would also have Jared Vanderbilt, who was involved in that trade. And I just think you would also have all your picks. So, like, I remember one of the things that people, like, the proposition was, if they had known, would they have just waited and traded for Donovan Mitchell? Because the Donovan Mitchell package ended up being, about the same as the Rudy Gobert package, if not less, to be honest. We didn't know Lauri Markkanen was going to be this good, to be fair. But it's funny now because the Wolves would be sitting so pretty if they never made this Rudy Gobert trade. They would have a ton of young up-and-coming players. They would have, defensively, they would be insane. You would have Vanderbilt, you would have Kessler, and you would have McDaniels as your front court other than Cat. And you would have so much versatility, so many different looks you could throw out there. They would be better built for the playoffs, arguably. They would be, like, part of the reason why we never understood this trade from the jump is not only did it not make them contenders and handcuff them for the foreseeable future, also the Wolves were good last year.
Yeah, that's crazy. They almost beat the fucking Grizzlies. Like,
yes,
who dropping kayfabe. Like, I've started doing some playoff analytics shit. I gotta admit, it's kind of looking like the Grizzlies might be like a little bit of a sleeper.
I was gonna say, I think you've been sleeping on them, and I was for a little. Okay, so on the whole here with the Grizzlies, I think their regular season analytics are always going to look better than their playoff analytics. I always think
my fraud shit,
Yeah, for sure.
But the thing is, they've just been missing so many guys. Like,
exactly.
Is Steven Adams supposed to be back?
No, he's done. They announced he's done for the season. So that's a big problem for them. But
that is a problem. Yeah.
The thing that I was saying about the Grizzlies is I don't believe in the Grizzlies. Let me be clear there.
Yeah.
But I do think that they at least have a shot to make it to the Western Conference Finals in a weird year, and who knows what happens from there.
They've injured themselves out of my problem with them, which they had like too many like fucking guys, and like how that like never fucking works.
As we sit here and talk about the Wolves having like 7 or 8,
but that would have been like all of those guys would have been rotation players, though.
A good problem too, like a good problem to have when you're a young team.
Well, but all those guys would have played. The Grizzlies have a bunch of guys who like. There's too many guys to play. You know what I'm saying? Like they literally have like want to develop like Jake LaRavia.
Yeah.
And so you're like, you fucking end up like trading Melton for fucking Danny Green.
David
Roddy and Danny Green. Like, I don't, brutal. Anyway, neither here nor there, but I just, the Wolves were like a young up and coming team. I know like there was like anxiety about Cat being fraudulent or like, you know, whatever was going on there. But like Anthony Edwards, like everyone agreed was like one of the young blue chip guys. Like it was very clear last year he was like a guy. Like
he had moments at 21 in the playoffs and in the play-in that like superstars have. Like it's and even yesterday in that play-in game, like you said, he was all over the place. That's the thing. The Ant experience isn't quite. He's still very young, and he's also not quite as clean as a lot of other like prototypical superstars. He turns the ball over a decent amount in big games. You know, he's gonna have some stupid fouls and do some stuff where you kind of scratch your head. But the wow moments are like, holy shit, he just took over the game. You know, yesterday he had multiple stocks, huge plays, defensive plays down the stretch. When he locks in on defense, he's really, really good on that end. And that offensively,
the strip on the spin move. Did you see that shit? That was fucking incredible.
He had a block at the rim. Like he really is a special talent in terms of athleticism. I even think that we might have underrated him because the fanfare was getting crazy. But my whole point on this is that you now have a situation where you got to look at this Gobert situation and go, where do they go from here? Because right now, I mean, I think they're staring down look, anything can happen in one game. And they could go to the Lakers and fucking shoot 100% from three and knock out the Lakers or knock the Lakers into that second play-in game. They could have, Ant could go off Cat. Cat's been shooting the ball really well recently. But realistically, you don't have Naz Reid. You now have Gobert, who took himself out of the game. And we make jokes about like, oh, they'll be better in the postseason or whatever. Yes, but also they still need front court help. Like they have now lost McDaniels, Reid, and Gobert. They realistically are either going to have to play small the entire game. They were playing Nathan Knight yesterday at the end of the game, who has barely ever played in the NBA. They might have to we might see Luka Garza minutes in a play-in game is what I'm trying to get at here. Like they were already thin. Like I like before the Naz Reid injury, I love like their top 8 guys. I was like, I like the starters. Naz is one of the best bench bigs in the NBA. Kyle Anderson's had a very nice year for them. And Taurean Prince is just like a very reliable 3-and-D wing. Just like super solid, not going to go crazy, but he's just a very just normal, reliable bench wing. And I was like, that's a pretty good top 8. And now it's like, okay, no Reid, no McDaniels, and you're going up against LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Best of luck. Like, so that is where it could go off the rails here. I think they're going to end up facing the Pelicans or the Thunder after this. And then they're like, if I had to put money on it right now, I would put money on them not doing anything in the play-in and completely missing the playoffs, not having their first round pick, having this situation with Gobert where they have to make a decision this offseason. Do they sell low at the lowest possible point of Gobert's value, where he's punching teammates, where he is already starting to decline, making a ton of money? And do they use something, whatever they don't have picks left, someone to get off of the Gobert contract to kind of just reset this situation? Or do they wait and do they say, let's see how this plays out, because we're not going to get anything realistically good back for Gobert. If anything, we'll get bad things back. And do we try to move Cat, or do we just remain pat and try to make this thing work with this young core and just hope that Gobert doesn't, punch another teammate?
Okay. So, my theory is whenever you're in trouble, you've got to look for the only team that's more like any and all teams that are more desperate than you. So in this trade, the Timberwolves received Davis Bertans.
I knew it. I knew that was coming. I literally, because I had that thought as a Sixers trade. If we are just going into asset accumulation mode and we're trying to get like a pick from the Mavericks, we're like, here's Tobias Harris. We'll take Davis Bertans and Tim Hardaway Jr., but you also have to send us out like a protected future first or something. Yeah. So Rudy Gobert. That's exactly what my thought was. But like, Kyrie and Gobert on the same team already with Luka upset.
Well, I mean, I think that what makes the Mavericks do this is Kyrie going to the Lakers or something like that. And then,
defense issues. Look, as much as Rudy sucks, he's probably still going to help the worst defense in the NBA.
Yeah. And, if anyone can make that work, it's fucking Luka Doncic. You know what I'm saying? Like that. Now, will they hate each other? Almost certainly. Is Jason Kidd the man for this to right this ship? Almost certainly. However, also, you could also send them like Jordan McLaughlin, like could go to the Mavericks.
Very inspiring.
I mean, hey,
they don't have it. Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I think he's a free agent. I don't even think you can trade him. So
no, that's what I'm saying. Like that's like pretty much all they have. Yeah, Austin Rivers, Naz Reid, Jalen Noel, Matt Ryan, Luke Garza. All these guys are like free agents. So Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Walker also a restricted free agent. So like brutal. That's like literally the only trade I could come up with because they're like the only team backed into a corner as bad as like as bad as this, and they could actually sort of use Gobert's like skill set. Like they just have no side. Like that could actually like they would not be a threat, but like that could help make them a more normal team. And if you're a more normal team, you kind of can make Luka a little more, you give Luka a little bit more room to do Luka things and maybe swag his way into the Western Conference Finals like he did last year with like an undermanned and shitty team.
So I'm Tim Connolly, the Wolves GM. Hello, is this Troy Weaver? I have a big that you may be interested in.
God, if Troy Weaver did that, that man needs to go to prison. Like we need prison abolition except for Troy Weaver. Like what he's doing to Pistons fans is that was the one, but on the over-unders, that was the one I was off by the most. Was the Knicks was the most, but the second most was the Pistons, just because I can't believe how bad he keeps like fucking that team up. Like just leave it alone.
It's extremely funny. I mean, I didn't want to bring it up this early in the podcast, but they did on the Russillo Bill thing in the last podcast. They were talking about Wemby destinations, and they were like, Charlotte doesn't deserve Wemby. They shouldn't get him. And I'm like, I get that because it's like they've never been a well-run organization. Right. It doesn't really seem like they have a ton of young talent, even though LaMelo Ball is really fucking good, and PJ Washington's a good role player, and Mark Williams seems to be pretty good. But there's nothing really that is drives you crazy about their future. Yep. But then they were like, I would love to see him with the Pistons, and I'm like, what?
Why?
In what world are the Pistons an extremely well-run organization? They just traded a Sadiq Bey for James Wiseman and went 1-20 to finish the 1-22 to finish the season or some shit. Like they literally have the least amount of wins of any team in the NBA over the last 2 years. And then someone said, well, Cade got hurt. And it's like, well, you already know how we feel about Cade. We don't have to go there. Yeah. But LaMelo also got hurt. And my whole thing on this, I know this is a little sidebar here, but my whole thing on this was like, is there anything that tells us that the Pistons are well run? If anything, I would say that they've made a lot of mistakes, and that it kind of reminds me of the Cavs situation a few years ago, where the Cavs hit on Mobley, and then in retrospect, all their moves look totally fine because Mobley's a stud, and it redeems whatever bad moves that they made. And it's like, oh, now Mobley's great because he makes everything kind of fall into place. So that was my whole thing with the Pistons, where I'm like, I don't think the Pistons are any more well-run than the Hornets. Like, I literally think that they're the same. Like LaMelo's by far the best player of the two teams.
I mean, if the Miles Bridges situation had happened to the Pistons, they would be. They would have 3 wins. They would be 3-79. like a bunch of like the Hornets have kind of had like some like pretty fucking bad luck, like some pretty rotten luck, like and they nailed the LaMelo pick, which by the way, you know who didn't nail the LaMelo pick is the fucking Warriors, who are supposedly the smartest organization in the NBA.
And then the Pistons traded for the guy that they had.
Like it's better to be lucky than smart in the NBA. Like,
yes, exactly. I think most of this shit is just luck. My whole like this is pretty much proof, like proof of concept that sometimes it's just better to be lucky than to be smart. And a large majority with the lottery and with the draft, that's the thing you're kind of rolling with here. And I don't know. I don't think any team that wins like 15 to 25 games a year deserves anyone, but like the Hornets made the play-in 2 years ago. Like it's not like they haven't been competitive. Like I think if I remember correctly, did they win a play-in game? I think didn't they like kick the shit out of the Pacers in the play-in 2 years ago?
Something like that.
Yeah. So I'm like, I don't really buy that like any of these teams deserve Wemby. I was like, it just doesn't make any sense to me.
The Hornets have made a more honest effort at trying to win games than the Pistons have. They fucking signed Gordon Hayward for like $40 million. Like they
kind of got unlucky, but they also knew that he had an injury history.
Right. But I'm saying but they like went for it. You know what I'm saying? They weren't like, if you think the worst thing in the world is tanking and that shit, like it's not like they've been like trying to like, do bad. I mean, they actually kind of won. They kind of won the Kemba Walker deal with the Celtics, like, to be honest.
Terry Rozier's been solid for them.
Yeah, Terry Rozier is like a real starting NBA point guard, and Kemba Walker was getting salary dumped 2 years later. Like, so
in the Pistons' defense, the Bojan move was good, and the Jeremy Grant signing was good. What they traded him for was not good in retrospect.
Who's better on who do the Pistons have that's better than Nick Williams? Like
Nick Richards, Nick Richards.
Nick Richards.
Nick Richards, you meant Mark Williams, I think.
I did, yes.
Jalen Duren I like better as a prospect, but my whole thing on this is that I like the Jalen Duren move. My whole thing here is that I think both of these teams have made good moves and bad moves. They've had good luck and bad luck. I don't think either one deserves it over the other. I think that whatever team Wemby goes to, if they even have like an ounce of talent, which both of these teams in theory at least do, they're going to be great. So who cares? I don't know. Like, you can't worry about like what Wemby wants 6 years from now, like the Luka situation. Maybe they turn it around because Wemby's so good.
I'm actually coming around. The moves Troy Weaver is making are so alarming. I'm actually starting to come around on I don't want him to go to the Pistons because like I think Troy Weaver will do some like bonehead. He'll be on some of that like Sacramento Kings bullshit from 5 years ago that like Marvin Bagley is our small forward. That's gonna happen. So just because the Trailblazers made a mid-season pivot. They're like the worst thing in the world, like with the tanking. Like they tried. Not
even mid-season. It was like game 70. That was the tanking conversation was so out of hand this year. Yeah. Because it was like no one tanked until there was like 10 games left. And like mostly all of them, the Mavericks being the exception, were mathematically eliminated from whatever they could make. So like, I don't know. I just think that like this whole like deserves thing versus like doesn't deserve thing would just got completely out of hand. But this whole conversation actually fits perfectly into the thing that I wanted to talk about next, which relates to Rudy Gobert and it relates to James Wiseman. It relates to a few other things. Wolfgang from the Ball Discord proposed that we come up with his idea was essentially best vibes and worst vibes teams, but I actually like the little bit of a remix that our friend Nihilus Bucks did on it. And he came up with basically what I call worst team all NBA, which is vibes plus production. So not great vibes, but also not making up for it. Like Luka can't be included because Luka's still one of the best players in the NBA, right? You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yep.
So, sometimes the production's so bad that it can make the vibes bad.
Yeah.
Sometimes the vibes are so bad it can make the production like not great. Like I'm not going to include like Trae Young, Luka Doncic, guys who have been like kind of whiny and like not really gotten their way, but they're still like really good players at the end of the day. For Nihilus Buck's team here, his team this year for worst team All-NBA was Ben Simmons, Lakers Russell Westbrook,
okay,
RJ Barrett, small forward, James Wiseman, power forward, and Rudy Gobert at center.
So that's a pretty solid team, I gotta say.
I was like, I almost can't even argue with this. The only one I will say is that like Russ has kind of been solid for the Clippers and seemingly has not been bad for the vibes at all. If anything, he might be actually good for the vibes. I think that he seems like he's pretty well liked in their locker room and like he's been totally fine for them. The other guy, Rudy Wiseman, and look, he's still young, but like in terms of production, like his teams are just absolutely terrible anytime he's on the court, whether it's the Warriors or the Pistons. And you know, it doesn't really seem like he wants to adjust his role a ton. Rudy, we already talked about. He's a fucking nightmare. I would want him off my team immediately if I had a team. I already didn't like him as a player, and he's even more dislikable as a personality. And then Ben Simmons kind of goes without saying as well. But RJ Barrett, someone sent me a thread. RJ Barrett. This is insane. Did you see this thread about RJ Barrett? Because Will's been kind of pushing this point all year, which is that the Knicks are essentially contenders without RJ Barrett on the court, which we've talked about a little bit. Okay, so this thread said 7 Knicks have played 1,500 minutes. Among the 7, RJ Barrett ranks last in efficiency field goal percentage, true shooting percentage, steal percentage, win shares per 48, BPM, VORP, plus minus, on off, and he's average or worse in block percentage, turnover percentage, total rebound percentage, assist percentage, and he's above average in none of these categories. If we extend it to the 8 players, it's still the same thing. So if you include Obi Toppin and Josh Hart, who played less minutes for the Knicks, he's still worse than anyone. If you expand it to the rest of the league, who have more players that have played more than 2,000 minutes in the NBA this year, he is last in steal percentage, bottom 10 in efficiency field goal percentage, bottom 10 in BPM, bottom 10 in VORP, bottom 10 in on-off, bottom 30% in true shooting, assist percentage, block percentage, win shares per 48, bottom 60% in total rebounding and turnover percentage, and plus minus. He is top 40 in no statistical indicators. Like there's no stats. He's top 40% in the entire NBA. And then as Will has pointed out, the on-off, the Knicks are basically a championship contender when RJ Barrett is on the bench. So that's why he was included in there as well. And he just signed a 4-year not max contract, a 4-year extension with the Knicks. So some other candidates I had on here. Kyrie, I didn't include. Kyrie is the obvious. You can swap him in for Westbrook.
I was going to say, another Mav, Christian Wood.
I have Christian Wood on my list.
A delightful contender. There's a lot of Houston
never
Rockets.
made a postseason, by the way. I realized today.
Awesome. That's so sick. There's a lot of Houston Rockets. I think most notably Kevin Porter Jr. I think is a contender just in terms of like vibes he's putting out there.
Although it doesn't really seem like this season it was that big of a deal, but the whole Rockets thing is just toxic. So
yeah, I mean, like he's got like he's got a pretty good. I think his VORP is like 1.3. Like I think he's like almost top 100.
Kevin Porter Jr. statistically has some things where you go, okay, and like sometimes you watch the game and you're like, he's not a bad passer. Right. He can score. Like there are redeemable elements to Kevin Porter Jr.'s game. Like it's a lot of the weird off the court shit that has been like what you would concern you more about having him on your team and why he got a NFL non-guaranteed contract, basically. Another guy I put on here was actually funny enough was Dwayne Dedman. Not only has he been terrible,
you're the biggest hater in the world.
No, I actually, do you know why he got cut by the Heat?
No. Why?
During a game, he apparently took one of their massage guns that they have and he threw it on the court.
Oh, Jesus.
What? Yeah, so not good for the vibes in Miami. Obviously, they cut him. The Sixers picked him up. He's terrible. He actually played really well in the game yesterday, which was funny, but he was just the largest person on the court, so that kind of helped him. Yeah. And then another guy that I wanted to include in here was Bones Highland, who...
Yes, that was another one I had.
Horrible defender. Offensively, he's still got some juice, but, kind of forced his way out of Denver, got into a fight with Plumlee yesterday. I don't know what the fuck's happening.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, like, if the Wolves game hadn't happened, that would have been the headline news today. Like,
exactly.
They got lucky that a worse, like, huddle, like, scrap happened, like, on the other side of the, just, like, in the same conference. That was, like, really bad.
Yeah.
Can I offer a coach for this team? In
Nick Nurse?
Yes.
Yes. I knew it immediately. I was gonna say, well, Steven Silas just lost his job. Let's be nice to him. He seems like a nice man.
No, that's what I'm saying. Steven Silas innocent. I mean, like, I think he was just given no authority. You know what I'm saying? Like
you saw the Raphael Stone thing, right?
No. Oh God, what is this?
Well, Raphael Stone had Raphael Stone apparently was thrown into, he like basically would go to practices and like give advice, which is like, okay, like that's weird. But apparently during a practice a year ago with the Rockets, he essentially got in there and like stopped Steven Silas while he was talking and like gave advice to players, like where they should stand and like what they should do and stuff. And Steven Silas was like, "You can't do that." And I think I'm the coach. Like the players have to listen to me, not you, the GM. So like, I think that this extends beyond Steven Silas. I think this is a organizational issue that probably starts at the top with Tillman Fertitta.
Can I offer another guy that I think might confuse some people, but I strongly believe he should have a place on this team?
Yes.
I think Dillon Brooks belongs on this team,
yes.
to be totally honest. Like,
agreed.
Like, he's not very good and does a lot of like talking and like bullshit and kind of like scrapping. Like,
do you ever see? Okay, so I totally agree. The players do seem to really like him in Memphis, but I think that's because they're winning, and I think it's been like 2 years of them winning and him at least being a part of that. Mm-hmm. It could get bad. It could go down south like real quick. But my whole thing on this is that there's this clip that always goes around, and it's a guy, and he's like, if you got problems, and he goes, "Come kill my uncle about it, pussy." That's Dillon Brooks. Talking shit to other teams. Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. are like, we got to deal with this fucking shit.
No, he's got Steven Adams behind him to clean up any tough guy messes that he leaves on the floor. Yeah,
that's Dillon Brooks talking shit. Anytime that the Grizzlies get into it with another team, and part of the reason why I really want to see that Grizzlies Warriors matchup in the second round, and then the two other guys I had on here for consideration for this team are just based on production, just being two of the worst players in the NBA this year, which was Will Barton, who I don't know what happened in Washington, but he left Washington and he's been just as bad for Toronto, and I don't even think he really even plays for Toronto anymore. And then Simone Fontecchio, who every time I watch him, it blows. I think he might be a rookie, so I got to give him a little bit of a break, but he's like a 27-year-old rookie or something, and he's just he wouldn't be in the NBA if the Jazz weren't trying to tank, is my whole point here. So, but overall, if you include the top guys there, like a really, really solid worst team all NBA this year in terms of vibes and production, with arguably Rudy Gobert being the headliner. Let's move on to okay, so do we want to do the over-unders or do we want to do the play-in stuff first?
let's go to our over-unders
Okay.
while I've got it all pulled up here. So I went through and tabulated our over-unders. We had 29 teams we went on because we literally forgot about the Washington Wizards in the exercise.
This is revisiting our preseason prediction over-unders.
Our preseason prediction over-unders. We locked 5 of them and then tried to do our best. So Trill, you went 4-1 on your locks, which was really strong. The only one you missed was the New Orleans 43.5.
Yeah.
I think New Orleans won 42 games.
Yeah, they won. I believe you're right. They won 41 or 42. I can check right now.
I think it was 42 because I think if they had won that game yesterday, they would have been a half game short. So
gotcha.
I think one and a half games short, I believe.
Look, Vegas knew you can't trust the health on this team. That's the only thing that they really.
I'm still pissed because
I know.
Has Brandon Ingram ever missed like 30 games or whatever the fuck he missed?
I think he had like 1 or 2 seasons where he's had. But in defense of Brandon Ingram, not that any of this is ever the player's fault, but he's not an injury prone player. But he did have he had a health issue a few years ago that kept him out. But that was like a heart issue. None of this is ever the player's fault, but this was like a specific circumstance. So Brandon Ingram actually misses a decent amount of games. He's played, so he played 79 his rookie year. Okay.
Yeah.
59 the next year, 52 the next year. And those were both full seasons. And then the COVID year, which was like 70 something games, he played 62. The next year was also shortened to 70 something. And he played 61, and then he played 55 last year and 45 this year. So Brandon Ingram does miss a decent amount.
I guess he does miss a decent amount of games.
But not as much as this. He missed, like you said, I think this is the most that he's ever missed.
Yeah. And they were number 1 in the fucking West.
I know.
A third of the way through that. I'm upset. That by the way, in case you couldn't tell, I also locked the Pelicans over, and that was one of my that was one of my losses. But
the Zion thing is I watched that Sixers game when he tweaked his hamstring. I was like, oh man, that really sucks. He'll probably be out a month. And that was 3 months ago. So it's just very clear that Zion, it's not the worst idea in the world to fade a team whose player can never stay on the court.
Yeah. Other wins by you and me. We both locked the Charlotte under. That was never in danger. 36.
That was way too high. I think even Bill and Russillo locked that. That was weirdly really high.
You locked the Denver over again, not even close, 50.5. Good lock by you. And then we both locked the Lakers under, which ended up being closer than maybe might have thought otherwise. They did make that in-season trade.
If they make that trade 2 months earlier, we're wrong on that. But they waited all the way to the deadline. They were honestly a savvy move by them to wait because the West seems to be wide open anyway, but they are in the play-in, and I'm sure they would have liked to avoid that.
Yeah, and then you also locked the Philly over again, not close, pretty comfortable.
I was good. What was that? 50.5?
50.5. Yeah. So
I was one. I remember being shocked at how low that was. And the Sixers started the season about as bad as you can and still comfortably hit over that. They had 54 wins.
Yeah. There are a couple. So I went 3-2 on my locks, sadly. As I said, I had the Charlotte under and the Lakers under, which I both hit. I hit the Golden State under, which I locked at 52.5, which was a good hit by me, if I do say so myself.
Just the haterade fucking worked in your favor.
Hate will never steer you wrong, unless you're hating on the New York Knicks, the other team I took the under on, and I was off by almost a full 10 games there. So that was 38.5. Good by them. So overall, Trill, you went 15-14.
Positive.
But there were literally times. It's very funny if anyone wants to go back and listen to the full 2-hour episode. You literally had the Portland under and the Sacramento over, and then you said, you know what? Actually, I'm gonna flip those and cost yourself like you did some stuff like that.
I remember my Sacramento reasoning was like, I think this team is talented, and I think that they have a lot of offensive firepower, but it's the Kings. And I was literally just like, defense. History tells us, the defense.
The defense really bothered.
What's true, but they were a historically good offense, which I underestimated.
Yeah. And I'm mad at us both. We both went over on the Raptors, which I can't believe we did at 46.5. I was sure we were going to get that right. We also both hit the Miami under. Neither of us locked it, but we should have done that, which was very funny.
What was Miami's over under?
49.5, which was
way too high. Yeah.
I mean, they had won like 50 games the year before. We like talked through it. There was some we squeaked under, like the Houston under we barely hit. That was 23.5. That went right up until the last day of the season. I took the Detroit over. That was one of my worst misses. They were 28.5. We both took the Detroit over, but I was like really gunning on it.
Why did I talk myself into Detroit? I don't even like Cade Cunningham.
It was me. I was really you kind of got. I kind of.
God damn it!
You would do it. Yeah. Some of my good hits though, I did hit the Suns under at 53.5.
It's a good one.
Which was, again, if you'll remember, that was a full 10 games less.
Yeah.
And that was why you took the over, which I think was,
savvy at the time.
Fair bet. Yeah, I was gonna say I think that was a fair bet. We both took the Orlando over, which was a good hit by us.
Yeah, that was an easy one. We knew they were gonna be better. Yeah.
We both took Oklahoma City over, another really good one. We both had the Mavs under at 48.5, not close. Again, good job by us. We both also had the Brooklyn under correctly at 51.5.
We were just like, what can you do with this? I remember just being like, what can you do?
No, I had the over and then switched it at the last second because I realized they won like 52 games the year before.
Yeah, and they and then you realize, oh right, Kyrie Irving's on this team. And
they had Harden for part of the year last year. And they had
you're like, at any moment, Kyrie can hit the button. We didn't know that was going to be posting an anti-Semitic documentary, but
we had no idea. To think the things we could have known before the year.
Exactly. Had we known that was going to happen, as the anti-Nazi NBA podcast, we would have certainly shot that down.
I think also you let yourself. I think you would have done better, but you let me talk you into the dumb ones like
this is just like the Gobert. This is just like the Gobert trade episode,
exactly.
Which I was like, I hated the shit out of that trade, and you were like, wait a minute, hold on, let me be contrarian for a second.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, we're not doing the contrarian thing. We have to give our real opinions from the heart, spit with venom.
Anyway, I did go 19-10. I went 20-10 last year.
Oh shit! So you did better than me. The locks I did better on the overall. You did better.
Yes.
Nice.
Yep. So I had a pretty. Again, I went 20-10 the year before. I did this the year before. So if I had this for underdog picks, I swear I would use it for good. But I can only do this in preseason things.
Yeah, sure.
I also want to go back for next week and listen to our preseason awards guessing. I want to find that pod because I distinctly remember saying Mike Brown and Joe Mazzulla were like the 2 coach of the year candidates. And I feel like we were spitting. I think we both said Malcolm Brogdon was probably going to be 6th man of the year. So
which could happen, which
still could happen if there's justice in the world. Because who started a lot of games is Emmanuel Quickly. We'll
get into that. We have the awards section coming later in the episode.
I don't really care about that. I'm kidding. But anyway, pretty good. We were correct on Milwaukee. Just going back and listening to the full episode, I was driving back from Philadelphia, so I had a lot of time. So I re-listened to old podcasts that I'm on, and I gotta say we kind of nailed it. I think all of our analysis was solid. It was pretty rare that we were off by a lot on any reasoning. I think the only time we really did that was the Minnesota. We were pretty high on Minnesota as a regular season team.
Yeah, we thought they were going to be regular season frauds, but they're playoff frauds, regular season champs, and it turned out that they were just total frauds on the whole.
Yeah, you were. You took the over on the Pacers, which before the year was 23.5. That was a good call. You got a lot of good reasoning on that, like that fleshed out before the year. And I think
I remember specifically being like, I really like Halliburton and Turner.
Yep.
Hield's a solid. And then I remember saying I thought Mathurin was going to have an instant impact, which he did.
Yep, he did. Yep. And you also said like Rick Carlisle teams don't really tank, which again, correct. Yep. So, that was a good call by you. And then the only other thing we really fucked up was the Clippers, but like a lot of people fucked that up. We both
Clippers are just
52.5. Like, yeah, it's just fuck. I've had it with it. Like I'm always sunny meme with the dartboard. I've had enough of these guys. Like
it has Steve Ballmer's face on it. I'm like, are you kidding me, dude?
Well, I'm ready for KD to send this team to the Shadow Realm. Like, let's get him out of here.
So speaking of, actually, I wanted to ask you this question. You're the basketball karma guy. You're the basketball gods. Don't tempt fate. Right. They talked about this on the Low Post, Howard Beck and Zach Lowe. I needed to get your opinion. If you were Ty Lue yesterday, do you try to tank that game? Because here was what was at stake. If they lost the game, they could have fallen into 6. They could have fallen into 7. That's what they were risking, right? The play.
Because the game was going on at the same time. The New Orleans-Minnesota game was going on.
But because the Wolves came back and won, there was a clip that was going around of Ty Lue where he goes, what's the score of the Wolves game? And they were like, they're up 2. And he was like, fuck. Like, kind of like they had already won the game, essentially. So that means that they were locked into 4-5. If they had lost, the Warriors move up to 5. The Clippers go to 6, and the Wolves are still in that 7-8 range because of weird tiebreaker shit. So you being the basketball karma guy, would you have said, fuck it, let's just go up against KD and Booker? Or would you have said, it's worth taking the risk on the chance that we get either the 7 or the 8 seed? We feel better about a matchup with the Grizzlies or the Nuggets, even though we risk going home. And honestly, better about a Kings matchup, which, by the way, I think the Kings would actually beat the Clippers in a series if that were to happen. I'm pretty certain that Clippers team does not want to see the Kings, funny enough. Yeah. But what would you have done if you were in Ty Lue's shoes?
I mean, that was what I was going to say. I mean, I think they're fucked either way. They just don't have they're just not a good team this year. Yeah. Like that's the problem, especially with Paul George hurt. Like I think they're drawing dead in either of those series.
Sure.
I think it's good to just win the games in front of you. I think, the basketball gods will smile kindly on you for that. It's going to be very funny when Mark Cuban loses that pick to the Knicks because of his chicanery and no nonsense, and because he cost the beautiful Boston Celtics the 33rd pick in the draft. I hate you, Mark Cuban, you monster.
Maybe. Isn't it going to be a coin flip?
It'll be a coin flip, but it's also, I didn't realize I forgot how far Portland fell. So we would only fall like 2 spots, because we would get the Portland pick. So
it doesn't even matter.
It didn't really matter, but I don't know. So anyway, point here being that I think they were fucked either way. Now, if did the Warriors do any angling? That's the karma end that I would be very careful what I wish for trying to get the Kings if I'm the Warriors. I would just say that.
I mean, I think the Warriors, look, they won their games, but they knew that if they kept winning, they were likely going to end up in the 6 seed. I don't think that they were angling for one matchup or the other. I will say this much. I think that they're happy that they got the Kings. And I think they just beat the shit out of the Blazers yesterday. They scored 55 points in the first quarter. And look, it was the tanking Blazers. But the Suns rolled out fucking Saban Lee, Sixers legend, Blue Coats legend, Saban Lee, and a bunch of third stringers. And the Clippers were struggling with them. So, the Warriors basically said, we're just going to beat them. And then if the Clippers lose and the Wolves win, whatever. We'll do whatever we want. I think the Warriors aren't really afraid of anyone ever. That's kind of always been their thing. So I think that, but they're certainly happy that they got the Kings instead of Kevin Durant and Devin Booker.
I can see the you know how ESPN always does the polls where they ask like 20 of their NBA perverts about,
and everyone picks the Warriors.
Yeah, I can see like the consensus be like every one of those will be Warriors in 5 or 6, like, and then like maybe like Zach Lowe will get cheeky with it and say like Warriors in 7 or something like that.
Zach's been picking the Warriors for like 2 weeks ever since he thought so.
Yeah, and I mean Wiggins. I will say this: Wiggins being back, I think this is 2 of the top 3 or 4 teams in the West playing each other in the first round. I think the Warriors are undisputedly the best team in the bottom 4 or 6 or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And I would not be so sure the Kings are the weakest of the top 4 seeds.
Right.
I think the Suns are the best team in the top 4. I'm not so sure that the Nuggets are that much better than the Kings, is what I will say, or the Grizzlies. I think the Kings belong, is what I will say before we get to the. I think people are being a little too dismissive of the Kings, and I'm just. I would be very careful about making like a Warriors in 5 pick if you want to, lay some money on the first round here.
We're gonna do that later in the week. I'm gonna have my picks ready to go, and I'm excited to see your reaction to what I picked for that series.
Okay. All right, very exciting.
So I think I agree with you. If you're the Clippers, you're fucked anyway. I don't think you're beating. If you don't have Paul George in the first round, I don't think you're winning a series against any team that you were realistically ever going to face. I think the Kings would have beat you. I think the Suns would have beat you.
You would have lost the play-in game against the Lakers.
The Wolves. They own the Lakers. That's the one thing. They beat the Lakers. Like the way Lakers were on the second half of a back-to-back, they went to overtime the night before. So keep that in mind. But they never lose to the Lakers. They've won 12 straight or some shit. Like it's crazy. But Paul George is out for the first round. They said today. Like he might come back in the second round, but he's out for the first round. Yeah. So I think the Suns are probably going to make light work of them. I don't really think that it's going to be a competitive series, but I also don't really think that they would have, maybe if they got lucky with a matchup. The one thing I will say is that Kawhi's played 49 games or 50 games. I think they're 33-17 in the games that he plays in. So maybe if they got the right matchup, the Nuggets weren't the right matchup. I don't even think the Grizzlies were the right matchup. The Kings weren't the right matchup, and the Suns weren't the right matchup. They could have lost in the play-in. I don't think it was really worth it. I think that this Clipper season, they just they need to punt and reset and watch Kawhi go into God mode and and possibly push the series. Who fucking knows? But
I mean, that's the only real chance they have. Yep. Just a Kawhi
40 points a game
masterclass.
Yeah.
Which he can do.
Yeah.
He is it's hard because he hates the regular season so much, which respect. By the way, awesome, sick. I love that. Keep that energy. He's also
that's against the Lakers, by the way. 36-7 in their last 43 matchups against the Lakers.
That's very funny. But I just, Kawhi is one of the greatest, proven one of the great playoff performers of all time.
Sure.
If before the Zaza Pachulia thing happened, he might have fucked up the Warriors thing before it even got started.
Sure.
In all honesty, I mean, I just, I'm just gonna say, Kawhi. I mean, I do want to give Kawhi his proper respect, but I just think the rest of
I just don't think this team is good enough.
Up. Yeah.
If they had Paul George, I would give them a chance. I would give them a chance in a lot of series, to be honest, if they had Paul George. I think the fact that they don't have Paul George is what it's just
It's not Kawhi disrespect. It's Kevin Durant respect.
Exactly. It's Kevin Durant is on the other team. And by the way, their second best player is Devin Booker and not Terrence Mann or Russell Westbrook or
the second best player on their team was first team All NBA last year.
Exactly. It is more respect for what the Suns are going to do.
The second best player was the best player on a team that won 64 games last year.
They made it to the finals 2 years ago, even if it was a little bit Mickey Mouse.
Yeah. They're legit. The Suns are legit. I think the Suns are clearly the best team in the West. Like, I do not care that they're coming out of the 4 seed. Like, they will.
I know they had a cupcake schedule with Kevin Durant, but they didn't lose a game, and that has to matter for something. I know it was only like 9 games, but still. Okay, so let's get into the play-in. Which, look, maybe this play-in, maybe it doesn't really have that much of an effect on the playoffs. I went back and I looked at some play-in games. The 10 seed has never won a play-in game so far.
Let's go.
So we've only had 2 years of this. So it's only 4 games. But the 10 seeds never won. The home team almost always wins these games. It's like, I believe there has been one road team that has won. I believe it was the Grizzlies over the Warriors. Yeah, in the second play-in game. To get them the 8 seed when they played the Jazz 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Otherwise, every other team that has won went on the road. Oh, and I believe, don't quote. No, I know the Hawks beat the Cavs, which was also second team.
Yeah, that was also a little bit Mickey Mouse though, because like Jared Allen was hurt, and
I think he played though.
Yeah, but like they were he was.
The point is, it's one game; anything can happen.
Yeah, right. I guess. Yeah. But I mean, back to the point about I think the Cavs last year got a bad thing because they were they were so fucking hurt down the stretch. So anyway, our beautiful Chicago Bulls are going to do this. They will defeat the evil.
So you want to talk about? You think the Bulls are going to go into Toronto and win? Is this more of a I want this to happen, or is this more of a you actually think that they are going to?
I actually think they can do this. And I would honestly probably give them the slate. Toronto's vibes are so fucked up, man. Like
Nurse is gone.
Yeah, like Nurse is like on his way out the fucking door. Do these guys really want to play like 4-5 more games or whatever the fuck they're gonna end up playing? Like, I think the Bulls. I think the Bulls have like a little bit of fucking pride, to be honest. Like the Bulls, I respect the Bulls players for like what they've done this year. They've had the season from hell that everyone predicted that they would have. And the Bulls could have let go of the rope. It probably, that's what everybody wanted them to do, right?
I wanted them to do it. Yeah.
And just trade everything. And I think that the basketball gods, you want to talk about a karma team? I think the Bulls are a karma team. I think the Bulls have earned a little bit of God's light. I think the Lord will smile upon them, and this will be, and the hateful demon Nick Nurse will be banished back to I don't know which team needs
he's going to the Rockets.
Yeah,
he's going to the Rockets. They want him. That is, lock that in. Nick Nurse and James Harden is going to be the funniest. Also, I'm convinced James Harden's gone, but Nick Nurse and James Harden is going to be the funniest coach-player pairing we've ever seen in the history of the NBA.
So, I shout out to Trey from Celtics Twitter who had said that. Do you know the umbrella? What is it called? Umbrella Academy meme of the two people in the car like driving by each other.
Yeah,
I think it's they're like driving by each other, and he quote tweeted that with Ime Udoka and Kevin Porter Jr. at the club seeing each other at the club in Houston next year. It was fucking killing me.
It's so good. Oh man, that's great.
That was very funny to me. But yeah, I mean, I just would say, I think that's the most interesting playing game, to be totally honest.
Did you hear Zach talk about it?
No, I haven't listened to Zach yet.
Okay, so Zach's response was hilarious. He was like, "Okay, Raptors Bulls. Well, this isn't going to be, the most pleasing game to watch." He started laughing. He's like, "These teams aren't exactly the most fun." He's like, "They can't shoot. Their offenses stagnate. Their half-court offenses stagnate. It's going to be an ugly game." But I do think, it is what is the immovable force object? What am I thinking here? I can't.
Unstoppable force, immovable object. Yeah.
The Patrick Beverly Bulls are 13-9. the Jakob Poeltl Raptors are 15-11. So they are both the definition of slightly above average.
Yeah. DeMar DeRozan revenge game.
That is the one narrative that I'm like, okay, so this is going to be a battle with DeMar because if I remember correctly, DeMar played like shit in the play-in that he played for the Spurs. Like he had a really bad game, but they were going up against the Grizzlies, who have their own version of rat mode. Raptors obviously have the OG rat mode, which literally, like, OG is on.
Yeah, OG is part of the rat mode. Yeah,
OG was born in the rat mode.
The rat mode, yeah. He was like Bane, like you barely adopted the rat mode.
I do want to see what, because DeMar obviously struggled last year in the Bucks series, but he had one like incredible game. I think he scored like 40 points in game 2 or some shit against the Bucks, and then other than that, kind of struggled up and down. I want the Bulls to win. I think I'm gonna lean Raptors just because I know you said they have weird vibes. I know you said all that shit, and I don't disagree. And I think that this game could get muddied up. Both half-court offenses are going to be bad. Both defenses are going to be scrapping, trying to get turnovers. Alex Caruso, Patrick Beverley on one end, OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam on the other end. Like it's definitely not going to be the most fun game to watch. I'm going to take the Raptors only because I think that I usually lean home team. I usually think Nick Nurse, as much as I hate Nick Nurse, give him a game-to-game plan for. And I've seen what he can do with that. Like, I know a lot of the time it is just make Joel Embiid's life hell when he plays the Sixers. But a lot of the times, shutting down the opposing team's stars are what wins you games. In a one-game scenario, I know I usually say, it's hard to me because it's like, I usually say in a one-game scenario, just take the player with the best team. I'm sorry, the team with the best player. But, like, you could make the argument that, like, Siakam's probably the best all-around player in this game, but, like, LaVine and DeRozan have upside in terms of scoring that, like, either one of them could easily just drop 40 and take over the game.
I think both DeRozan and Siakam were all NBA last year, right? Yeah. So, like, I think both teams are pretty even talent-wise with Lonzo in the Lonzo zone, basically, which is such a bummer. It's going to be interesting. This game might come down to Vooch because the Raptors are actually kind of not really well equipped for a stretch big.
True.
Like, to be totally honest. Like, so.
Yeah, they want Poeltl near the rim.
So, like, if Vooch is kind of shooting, like, he could be a little fun. I don't know. I that's kind of one of my favorite. I mean, it's an ugly ass game, but I'm gonna try to watch. I'm gonna try to watch that game if I can. The little sicko pervert that I am.
Yeah, I'm watching all these games, and I actually think it's going to be very evenly matched. I think it will come down to the end.
Yeah,
it's basically, do you trust the team that you feel as though doesn't have a ton of defensive weaknesses? Which I know that the Raptors' offense has been better than their defense, but since they got Poeltl, their defense has been better. They don't have a ton of defensive weaknesses versus the team that just has two hoopers who can make tough shots at the end of games, which the Bulls do.
You know what I'm realizing though? That the Bulls do have a lot of guys who can get injured, and like I can tell you, Nick Nurse's game plan, as it is always in the playoffs, is just doing the Krav Maga, like circling weaknesses, like eye gouge here. Zach LaVine has eyes. Get him. Poke him in the eye.
Darius Garland still looking like this when he shows up.
That's crazy. What did did they wipe their ass with their hand before the game and then just go after his eyes? That's crazy. That's really crazy. That like it's like 8 months later or 6 months later. Like what the fuck, man? Yeah,
it's absolutely insane. But so you're taking Bulls.
I'm taking the Bulls.
I'm taking, and we already know about Joel's face, obviously, last year with the Raptors, but I'm taking the Raptors. It pains me to say it, but I did want to pull this up. Isaiah commented, listen to the Ringer NBA pod, and they said the Raptors could challenge the Bucks in the first round. I just don't even know what you're watching if you think that is. Like, the Bucks almost won 60 games.
I've said this like, all time, which is why I'm like very confused. I'm very annoyed with myself for taking the Raptors over when I went back and listened to that. But like, people are doing the opposite thing. Like last year, people were way too low on the Raptors because they had the season from hell.
Yeah.
And now this year, everyone was like, well, they won, 48 games or whatever the fuck they actually won last year. And it's like, no, that team was like better. This team, I'm sorry, they suck. Like the vibes are awful. They're not good.
Yeah.
And the Bulls have been chosen by God's light. Brandon Johnson, let's go, Brandon. This is Chicago. This is a new Chicago. Lori Lightfoot has left.
It's over. Building. It's over for Nick Nurse and Lori Lightfoot.
Yeah, Nick Nurse and Lori.
The Lightfoot. Old regime is gone. We're here.
This is what's happening. Yeah, Brandon sends his regards. Is going to be
2 reasons I want the Bulls to win, other than the fact that I just don't like the Raptors.
Yeah.
One, I would love to see Patrick Beverley's response to winning another play-in game.
That would be
even just the podcast afterward would be incredible.
Yeah.
And then 2, they're going to lose their pick to the Magic, and you got to give them something to live for if you're a Chicago fan.
Like you have no, because I know the Vooch trade was bad, but like
real bad.
The Bull. I mean, yeah, it was bad, but like. A lot of the stuff a lot of the problems the Bulls have run into are like it's just kind of like a bad situation, like bad luck. Like they kind of killed it with the DeMar signing, to be totally honest.
They killed it with the Lonzo signing.
But that's the fucking problem.
Yeah.
The Caruso signing was really good. I want the Bulls to succeed because the Bulls are ethical. Like we're bringing that word back. The Bulls tried to
the moral organization.
Yeah, They tried to do the right thing. I want to see them rewarded. I want to see them win this game, lose, and then get Wemby.
Let's go.
Yeah.
They shoot
Raptors.
all the way.
Yes.
They shoot 14 spots up.
Yes.
Let's go. Derrick Rose 2.0.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about the other Eastern Conference game, which is Hawks Heat. We touched on it a little bit earlier. I'll just put it out there. I think the Heat are going to kick the shit out of the Hawks. I think that
unfortunately,
we've both been lower on the Heat this year because they're just not that good. But I have watched both of these teams play in the last week in a game that they needed to win.
Yeah.
And the Heat took it to the Sixers had nothing to play for. I don't really take much from that game, but they took it to the Sixers, and the Hawks a day later in a game that they, in theory, should have wanted to win. They could have, that basically, if they had a chance to fall out of this play-in game, if they lost that game, which they did, they got lucky with some other results that happened. But they lost to Jaden Springer, who, look, I have to take the L on Springer, who I loved him pre-draft. I thought he was horrible for the Sixers in Summer League and preseason, and I jumped off the bandwagon. He was fantastic in that Hawks game. He's been great in the G League. He totally proved me wrong. But he should not be beating a team that has Trae Young, John Collins, DeJounte Murray. Like, the Hawks are so frustrating because they have talent. And they just have no fucking idea. It doesn't fit together. They don't know what to do. They're so frustrating because, like, I know this team should be better than it is, and it's just not. And I think that if you want to talk about vibes, whatever's going on in Atlanta is totally off this season. They fired their coach. They brought in a new front office. Like, the Heat, Jimmy in one game. I'm not betting against Jimmy in one game. So I'm taking the Heat. And I think that they always have an answer for Trae. So, like, anything can happen in one game, but I'm taking the Heat in this game. I don't think it's going to be particularly close.
I have to give up the ghost. I've really I waited all year for the Hawks to finally start hitting threes, and it just never happened. I guess Trae Young is just a 34% 3-point shooter now. Like, they're just out of nowhere. Yeah, out of nowhere. So, I don't know. Brutal. I mean, this is the Kevin Huerter effect. What we're learning is Kevin Huerter is good, like, which is kind of crazy.
Sure.
But, I don't exactly what you just said. Like, the Heat are becoming tryhards at the right moment, and the Hawks look like they're ready to go home. So I can't imagine. I feel pretty strongly that the Heat are going to beat the living shit, and it's not because they're a much more talented team. This is like literally just.
I think it's like fairly mindset. Even matchup. I just think that The Heat are such boomers that they literally want it more, and in a one-game matchup with the best player in Jimmy, they're going to get it done. Like, that's just kind of how I feel. Spo will have a great game plan for the game, I'm sure, and they'll look awesome. Quinn Snyder seems like he's still trying to figure it out with whatever's going on in Atlanta. By the way, by the end of the year, Atlanta was a top 10 offense, so they are the 9th in offense right now, at least.
Well, let me just say I don't trust the Quinn Snyder game planning in Miami. I'm just saying there is
not a lot of sleep the night before.
Yeah, I was going to say he might stay up all night working on a game plan. Let me just put it that way. In Miami,
might be a little
access
bit
to a lot of he's got access to a lot of the stuff he needs to
tap into.
Stay aware. Yeah, allegedly.
Barry. Also, Jonathan, yes, the Heat did lose to the Wizards. They benched all of their starters in the second half of that back-to-back, so they didn't play any of them. It was obvious that game, once like they beat the Sixers, they knew that basically all the Brooklyn had to do was win one of the last 2 games, and it didn't matter. And the Sixers could have thrown the game the other day if they wanted to, if that actually, because that the Sixers, as much as the more I thought about it, I'm still not afraid of the Heat in any playoff matchup. No. But the more I thought about it, the more I was like, I don't want to get into a situation where you have to go 6 or 7 games on the off chance that the Heat go super rat mode and push the series just because of injuries. Just because the more games you play, the more variance there is, the more likely that one of your best players gets hurt and you're fucked. So and also the play style. Like, Brooklyn isn't as physical as Miami. They're not as rat mode as Miami, and they're not going to take out one of the Sixers' best players. So,
when they play the Celtics, there will be 2 outcomes. There will be the outcome where the Celtics somehow 2-2 after 4 games, and it's the most annoying thing in the world, and
plus 90 point differential.
Yeah, exactly. Plus 90 point differential, but somehow the series is tied, something like that, or it is a 4-game absolute ethering, just reaching into the cradle and strangling whatever is going on in there.
I don't want to tip my pick, but I'm leaning towards that direction for that series.
Yes. Okay.
So yeah, I'm going Heat here. I think it's going to be a blowout. Let's go over to the Western Conference where actually, you know what? Let's wrap up the East. So you would have in the second matchup, you would have Hawks and Bulls, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who are you taking for the 8 seed?
I just said that I wanted the Bulls to slide down to get into the Wemby thing, but I kind of like the Bulls to win that game too. I like the Bulls, the 10 seed Bulls, to go back to the Bucks. I like the scrappy Bulls.
All right, so Bulls win. I would have Raptors Hawks in my final play-in game, and that's tougher for me.
Yeah. Both teams have this is an awful vibe off.
This is a bad vibe off. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Also, man, that's tough. In a 1-game series, anything can happen. Atlanta's at home.
Mm-hmm.
I probably should take Atlanta.
Yeah.
But something just tells me there's something off with that team that goes deeper than the surface, and it's probably unfixable. So I'm taking the Raptors. So I'll go Raptors in the 8 seed. Okay. Lakers Wolves on the other end. This is kind of similar. Unless Anthony Edwards or Karl Anthony Towns just goes fucking off, there's no way that I think the Wolves can win this game.
I will be picking the Wolves in this game.
You're taking the Wolves.
I am taking the Wolves in this game.
So you want to see that Lakers Nuggets matchup in the first round?
This has nothing to do with want. I kind of like the Wolves without Gobert. If we didn't have the news that Gobert was staying home, I mean, I guess this is the one matchup where Gobert would probably help, against Anthony Davis or something.
Anthony Davis scored 38 points on incredible efficiency last time they played, and Gobert was healthy.
Look, man, I mean, I know McDaniels probably isn't going to be available. He fucking broke his hand, right?
He's done.
He's done, yeah. So
Naz Reid is out.
Yeah, so sign me up for the Hospital Wolves, man. I don't know what it is. I really think that again, call this what would you say? This is also kind of a gut feeling about just teams liking each other. and like removing bad things from a team, like
rallying around Gobert being out.
How much they hate Rudy Gobert, because if they win this game, they don't have to play with Rudy Gobert for like another couple days. Like they might have to play in like an 8-9 matchup if they lose this game. Terrible, worst thing that could happen.
They get a few days off from Gobert. That's what they're playing for.
I concede that like the Lions will like most of the time. Like I think the Lakers right now on paper are clearly a better team with the injuries that the Wolves have had. Like that's not a question. But something about this like smell test. I think Ant is going to be like very up for the challenge. I think LeBron is sneaky gross. I think a lot of these Lakers guys aren't really playoff guys, to be totally honest. The Lakers do a little bit of garbage hustling, like with guys like Dennis Schroeder and, D'Angelo Russell and some of these guys who are like kind of, maybe not as good as their stats look, So
famously had a great play-in game for the Wolves last year, though, where you couldn't fucking miss. It's one game, anything can happen. Don't get me wrong.
Okay.
I would be completely shocked if they won this game. It would blow me away if they won this game.
I'm operating under the Chapo principle of what would be the funniest thing to happen outcome. Here. Yeah, fun and the absolute funniest outcome is the Lakers still missing the playoffs after this run. Like that is the funniest thing that could happen. So I will be picking the Wolves. I'll be selecting the Wolves in that game.
Okay, so I definitely think that I'm not gonna. I wish that I had any faith in. The Wolves are going to go small, and they're going to try with, I don't know, Kyle Anderson at the 5, I'm sure, when Karl Anthony Towns is off the court. But you're going to see some big Nickeil Alexander-Walker minutes. You're going to see some Jordan McLaughlin, some Nathan Knight. I don't think it's going to be pretty. I think the Lakers are going to win. I do think that the Lakers are being overrated in general. But I don't think they've played – they basically haven't beat a good team in forever. Like, they just – I don't really beat good teams even after these trades. Yeah. So I'm a little bit lower on where they sit in the playoff picture, but I think they handle this play-in game. I think they play the Grizzlies in the first round.
Wolves will have the best player on the court.
It's totally possible.
With LeBron James, I know, I'm aware LeBron James and Anthony Davis are on the other team.
But, I mean, in a one-game setting, I'm not putting anything past like locked-in Anthony Edwards on both ends.
Locked-in Anthony Edwards in LA. That guy is like built for big moments. I'm just saying, like we were just talking about.
By the way, LeBron had 36, 6 and 6 in his last game.
That's fine. Bad. 33,
8 and 7, 37, 5 and 6. I'm just looking at his recent stat lines. He's had some stinkers too, but he's had some amazing games recently.
I'm just saying,
and he's playing hurt.
I like Showtime and this is the point I wanted to make earlier when we were talking about the Wolves. Ant has that Giannis thing where he's just like completely unflappable no matter how bad things are going.
Yeah.
Which I really value, like especially in the playoffs. That's like a Jimmy Butler has this too.
Yeah.
Like just the absolute fucking nothing rattles you. You could turn the ball over a billion times, miss 7 free throws in a row. Doesn't fucking matter. You're coming back and competing like the next possession. I think that's a really valuable skill in the playoffs, which is why Jimmy Butler and Giannis's skill set translates so well in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly possible. I'm taking the Lakers in a rout.
Okay.
I don't know if in a rout. I don't know if the Lakers really have it in them to rout a team, but I think the Lakers will comfortably win.
I will say on paper, this should be a rout. This line will probably be like 11 points.
Sure.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And then the other matchup is going to be a fun one, which is Pelicans Thunder. 2 young teams led by 2 star players that Shea's going to finish probably top 5 in MVP this year. Ingram has been fucking on a tear recently. It was certainly not his fault. They lost that game yesterday. He has been absolutely fucking awesome. This is a winner go home game in New Orleans. Who are you taking for the Pelicans Thunder?
I would like to continue my contrarian streak, but I just think Jonas Valanciunas is going to have like 20 rebounds like in this game. Like Valanciunas might end up with like 32-20. Like you might have an old Wolves Kevin Love stat line in this game. Like,
sure.
they play at center? The Thunder, like,
I just can't even remember.
It's like I don't even know. But
let's pull up a random Thunder game. I can't even think on. Like, I'm not really qualified to talk about the Thunder because, like, I feel like they've done this a few. Like, they beat the Sixers earlier this year without a center somehow. Hold on, they had to start someone. But they play the Williams. They play the other Jalen Williams.
Oh, the other Jalen, the bad Jalen Williams.
The worst Jalen Williams.
Worst Jalen Williams. He's fine. Yeah. But like
they do play Jeremiah Robinson Earl as well, but he's only 6'8".
He's pretty solid. I was actually kind of impressed with him.
Fine.
Like when the Celtics played. But I just don't think. I think this is a different ball game. I mean, I did really like the Thunder, and I'm a huge Shea fan. Again, going to the same thing with my. He will probably be the best player on the court in that series.
Yeah,
so, like even with Brandon Ingram on there, but I just don't think the Thunder just don't have the horses to run with this, especially with a slowed down pace. And I think rebounding is going to come into it a lot more. And just like the Pelicans just have so much size, like even without Zion, and
they have a lot of guys they can throw at Shea. Not that it really matters, but they have Herb. They have Trey Murphy.
Yeah.
If you need to play Dyson Daniels, I don't know if he'll actually play in this game, but you have options. You have Najee Marshall. Like, you have defensive wings you could throw at Jalen Williams, and it's going to be interesting. It's definitely a completely different stylistic matchups in terms of the way that they play and kind of the depth of this team versus, like, the Pelicans are kind of deep, and the Thunder really have. It's a lot of top end talent for the Thunder.
Yeah,
I'm not really qualified to speak. I don't watch these teams a ton, but just based on what I've seen, even I still think they should have won that game. Like, Brandon Ingram played 42 minutes, had 42 points, 12 rebounds, and 7 assists. And they lost, which is like kind of scares me for a one-game matchup. Like, Brandon Ingram can play that well on offense, and they can still lose, but. I'm going to take the Pelicans. Pelicans at home. Pelicans have more to play for, too. Yep. They've been in the playoffs already. They want to keep that momentum going. If the Thunder lose, this is found money. This is house money. It's not to say that they're not going to try really hard because they're a young team and they will.
Yeah.
I hope my guy Isaiah Joe comes in and scores like fucking 30 points and makes me look like an idiot. And the Thunder are just like, we completely slept on them and they stomp them. But I'm going to go Pelicans. And then that, for me, that will set up a Wolves-Pelicans rematch. Yesterday was really close. It was in Minnesota. It's going to be in Minnesota again. That's where I'm like, who's the 8 seed? And it's really tough for me because I think with all the injuries and the shit that's going on with the Wolves, the Pelicans are probably the better team, but they just lost to this team yesterday in the same scenario.
And it turned around when those guys got hurt.
Yeah.
Which is the crazy thing. Like, they were down when those guys got hurt. Like,
Wolves at home.
Yeah.
Man, I really wish McDaniels didn't get hurt.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the one that hurts.
And that would make the first round matchup better, too, with the Nuggets and the Wolves. Because I just don't think they have a chance without McDaniels in that series.
Yeah.
So
that hurts. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I'll go with the home team and stick with the trend and go. Now I'm going Pelicans. I think the Pelicans are going to beat them this time. I think I think that this first game will give them confidence. And I think that they'll go into Minnesota and they'll win that game, even though it's certainly going to be tough to beat Anthony Edwards at home. But that's going to wrap up a pretty disastrous season for the Wolves.
Yeah, I agree. I also think the Pelicans will be the 8th seed in my reality. Bye-bye, Lakers. Bye-bye.
Okay, so you think they're going to beat the Lakers? Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like you've just went with what you want to see.
Look, I'm just saying, like, sometimes you have to operate from a hater's perspective. Now, did that result in me, despite going 19-10 on my picks, going 3-2 on my locks? Yes. However, I'm gonna stick with my process here.
You got to trust the process.
Yeah.
All right, let's switch over let's pick our awards real quick.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of conversations that could be had here. I think there have been a lot of conversations about the same general pool of players. I'm not going off the board here with any of my picks really. But I kind of want to talk this through because I haven't really made up my mind on I'm open to your thoughts. I'm open to people's thoughts if they want to comment them. I just think that like I know MVP is locked in for me. We already talked about Joel's MVP.
My preseason prediction was Joel Embiid for MVP. I will stick with that. Joel Embiid,
and it appears he's running away with it as well. The votes have leaked, and it was like he had like 14 first place votes out of 17 people or 18 people or something.
He's getting some of like the bitchiest like media people who are like so mean, like mad that like, I don't want to vote for Joel. Like he's gonna lose the robot vote like the Kevin Peltons, but like he's gonna do pretty well otherwise. Like,
he did. Kevin Pelton said last week it was he's voting Jokic and. The robot vote is a good way to put it.
Shocking that the robot vote is going with Jokic.
But the other guys that Bill and Russillo admitted that they're voting for Embiid, despite, as you said, stomping their feet while they do it. A win is a win, bitch. I don't care. I don't give a fuck. Take it. Zach Lowe, who also famously has been mad at Daryl Morey about this. Howard Beck, who has famously been mad at Daryl Morey about this. And I think that this is pretty much clearly where it gets more interesting to me is down the ballot. Jokic and Giannis are obviously going to be in some order, second and third. Fourth is probably going to be Tatum, just because we've talked about it before. I mean, Tatum is the best player on what I think is the team that could win the finals. He's really good.
Yeah, he's really good. I'm so mad that he like, I don't know. I'm so mad that he like made me look really smart at the beginning of the season and then like just absolutely fell apart. Like he inverted his season. So
but he was the favorite at one point, a month into the season, 2 months into the season. And if that's the case, that means that you played at an MVP level for at least a month or two. Yeah. And if that's the case for me, that's good enough in a weak year to be the fourth option.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
A week, I shouldn't say weak. I think that the top candidates are strong. I think that the depth of this MVP class is so shaky because of all the parity, because of the fact that like guys who we thought were locked into fifth place aren't even in the play-in. So like with Luka being out.
So that's what it comes down to. Is it's like, do you do Luka or do you do Steph? I think those are the two guys I had for my final like fifth spot.
Well, there's another guy. There are two other guys that you could throw out there as well.
Were you gonna say Dame?
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who has had an incredible statistical season. Who that Thunder team really has no business being the 10 seed. They are pretty good without him, but like if he's by far their best player. He has become a legit superstar. I think he's a top 12 player in the NBA. And he's coming into his prime. Like, certainly one to consider. Yeah. If you're going to bump Luka because his team missed it, he's a logical replacement. The one that Q, our buddy Matt, has been saying to us, I actually don't think that Jimmy Butler's case is horrible. I mean,
if he's a 7 seed though, like if I'm gonna Shai
Gilgeous-Alexander's a 10 seed.
Yeah, but like we're talking about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's team was like literally like 29th in the NBA last year, and Jimmy Butler's team was
he was a big part of why they were good though. I mean, and they were the 1 seed last year. In a weak year for 5th place in MVP. Yeah, Jimmy has a case. I'll say that.
Case. I will concede that he does have a case. It's close enough. I consider Steph and Luka that even with Luka going shit poo poo doo doo mode, like his statistical profile is still fucking insane. Like,
well, that's the thing. And he did admit while making this argument, Jimmy isn't a top 5 player. It was like he was like Steph and Luka are better players than Jimmy. Yeah, but in terms of in this season, his team's probably going to make the playoffs. They're probably going to be a 7 seed in the stronger conference. Yeah. He did average 23, 6, and 5 on 54% shooting from the field. Down the stretch of this season when they really needed him, he basically just like didn't miss shots. In the last 3 games he played, he went 12 for 16, 9 for 12, 9 for 12. He is one of the most efficient players, as Kevin Pelton pointed out on that podcast. One of the reasons why analytics really love him is because he causes turnovers, he gets steals, which get lead.
Yeah, never turns it over.
Never turns it over, which which is a massive benefit towards his team because he doesn't let it go out and transition the other way. So it's certainly
a lot of analytical models like value steals and turnovers at like 9 times the amount of points, just to give people an idea of kind of how that math shakes out and why that goes that way. Which it sounds insane, but when you think about it, just in terms of like you're ending a possession and giving yourself like a 1.3% like expected points on the other end on the fast break. So
exactly,
there's something crazy going on. What I tend to do is I do a thought exercise where I swap guys on the teams to see like what would that look like if Jimmy Butler were on the Dallas Mavericks. He would have demanded a trade like 7 months ago. And
which I actually would respect him for.
And if Luka Doncic was on the Heat, he would be 90 pounds lighter and would have had MVP sewed up months ago. So now, is that for good reasons? No, it's adrenochrome and Pat Riley's fat shaming, which is not no reason for anyone to live that way.
There's no moral argument here. It's just kind of objective facts here.
Yeah, it's objective facts that, like, if you switch their situations, it would be wildly different. So I would go, like, if you switched Steph with Jimmy Butler, like, might have done a Dexter kill room on James Wiseman if he were on the Warriors this season. Like something like that would have happened. It's all Steph did was just like, yeah, I guess I don't care. I'll keep shooting threes. Whatever, man. I'll keep shooting threes and getting mad about low income housing in my neighborhood. I don't care. Like I have other things to do.
I mean, I talked about it on the last episode, dude.
Yeah.
I know it's easy to dismiss because the Warriors weren't very good this year in the regular season, but if any other player was having the shooting season that Steph Curry was having this year, it would be the greatest non-Steph shooting season of all time, and it's like his 4th or 5th best.
Yeah,
like these things have to matter at a certain point. Like the things that Kevin Durant, if he had played more games, that Steph Curry, that all those guys do, is just being taken for granted in a way that is kind of crazy because they are who they are. But certainly worth discussing in this MVP argument. Okay, so
cards on the table. If you put a gun to my head and force me to make a selection, I will be taking Stephen Curry as my number 5 guy. Yes, I will be leaving Luka Doncic on, despite him being second in VORP. He's got the VORPs and the Snorps and all the other stuff, but not to go Bill mode, but I think it does matter when you have open disdain for your teammates. Now, maybe deservedly so. This is a dog shit situation, and it's whatever. But Steph got his team to the 6th seed and might get them to the 2nd round and it wasn't like they had.
And he missed a lot of games too, so it's not like you play. It's not like he played the entire season. He still was able to. I think they went a few games above 500 with him. Luka's team was 500. The Heat were 6 games above 500 with Jimmy, and below 500 without him.
56 games for Steph.
Yeah, 68 for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Hey, players don't really play over 70 games. None of the MVP candidates will, except for Jason Tatum. So
he loves playing. He loves playing.
Won't stop going in.
Won't stop playing. Please, Jason, I'm begging you. Please stop.
Yes. Okay. So now we move on to Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah.
I believe this was also Wolf's idea from the Discord. Mm-hmm. Another great idea from Wolf, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Get rid of just having one Defensive Player of the Year. Let's have, like they do in hockey, like he said, you have a defenseman of the year and a goalie of the year. Let's have a rim protector of the year, and let's have a defensive player of the year.
Yeah.
Because every single year, this award almost always goes to, until Marcus Smart last year,
And people are still fucking mad about that. Like people are.
I know. I have people in my mentions about it today.
Yeah.
Because they were complaining because Brook Lopez can't win because he's the third best defender on his own team, is what Bill and Russillo were saying. And this Bucks fan did say, well, I think that you could have made the argument about Smart last year that he was the third best defensive player on that team. So, I mean, not super off. I mean, Rob Williams and Tatum were really fucking good last year.
I mean, my opinion that Rob is actually a sneaky, more of an offensive player than he is. And like, the way that Marcus Smart does so much quarterbacking, like, look at that Bucks game. He was fucking guarding Giannis. Like, I think this has gotten like a little out of hand. Like, everyone's kind of let the Vorps and Snorps perverts get to them a little bit. And it certainly didn't help that Smart was injured and looked really bad for like 40 to 60 games this year.
Sure.
I think that kind of helps, confirmation bias and some of this stuff. Marcus Smart is a fucking an elite defender.
He had an argument for best on-ball defender in the NBA last year, and he's a very good team defender as well.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I think a lot of what the Celtics were able to do, why the Celtics can have that super hyper switch thing, is they're elite at scram switches.
Sure.
And part of the thing with scram switches is you need to be able to have someone on the back line who can come in and handle a strong guy. Like if Derek White gets caught on Joel Embiid, and the other bigs are pulled out on the perimeter, you need Jaylen Brown or Marcus Smart, guys who are giant, who are, giving up inches, but still strong. Grant Williams is kind of like this too, but he's kind of a big, like, just strong enough to hold that together. And I think Marcus really quarterbacks the defense. Rob has a lot of like wow factor. And I think Rob does a lot of his work in like creating, making shots, and impacting shots without even like jumping, because guys are kind of hearing footsteps and like he does impact you. And I think you could probably make
block stops and rim protection is
yeah. And you could make the same case for Jaren Jackson Jr. So like I just want to dismiss that because that's like one of my pet peeves. This is some Celtics propaganda, so I appreciate you letting me do that.
Okay, so I will let you cook, but only because you're kind of reinforcing the point that I want to make, which is that for the modern NBA. In a league that is constantly changing, and we're thinking about defense and in a different way than we have before.
Yep.
Versatility is pretty much everything on defense.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
And if you are able to have versatility, which is one of the things that really frustrates me, is that we give the awards to the Rudy Goberts, we give the awards to the best rim protector, and then when we get to the playoffs, they suck and we blame them for being targeted. Whereas part of the reason why you target a Rudy Gobert, a Brook Lopez, a Joel Embiid, someone who's a 7-foot rim protector, why you target them on the ball is because it's part of your strategy. You want to pull them away from the rim. It doesn't mean that they're not good on defense. It means that it is part of your strategy. It makes it tougher to do that when a player is more versatile on that end, because what do? You switch on to Evan Mobley, and Evan Mobley can guard you in space. Like there is, or Jaren Jr. or Draymond Green, or one of these more versatile defenders, they can do both, which is just more valuable. But it doesn't mean that having the best rim protector is a bad thing, because rim protection is still incredibly important. And if you have one of those best guys, you're going to have an elite defense no matter who's on the court, which is why Brook Lopez, their defensive rating is still incredible when Giannis is on the bench, because Brook Lopez is still protecting the shit out of the rim. So my whole point on this is that the versatility that you get for that like modern defensive player, the Draymonds, the Giannis's, whoever, that should be its own award. And then guys like Brook and Rudy and Miles Turner and Joel not as much recently statistically because he carries a lot on offense, but if he wants to, he really can lock in on that end. If that's the case, then we should have both. They should both be celebrated for different reasons, essentially what I'm saying. And the part of the thing here is that we have like 4 candidates that are like all kind of different this year. And the way that, and honestly, I'm shocked at how the votes have gone so far.
I am too, because I thought for sure Jaren Jackson Jr. was going to run away with this.
But that's not the case, because the media doesn't like the fact that he hasn't played a lot of minutes, which I think is fair. He hasn't played a lot of minutes
compared to other guys. It feels like they really want to give it to him. Like they really want to give it to him. Like
so far, Mobley's in the lead. Just so you know,
I saw that, which is crazy.
Well, I was shocked by that, and it's not to say that I don't think Evan Mobley's a really good defensive player, but I've talked about this. He would be by far the youngest that's ever won the award. The only other guys, there were there were three 23-year-olds. I can't remember the other one. The only other guys that won the award at 23 years old were Dwight Howard at his peak when he was 23, one of the best rim protectors and defenders in the NBA, and Kawhi Leonard, like wing defender, probably the best wing defender we've ever seen at his peak. So those are the two guys of modern players that have won the award at 23. Evan Mobley's 21. It's not to say that he shouldn't win it because of his age. It's to say that there's no historical precedent for it. And I don't think that Mobley, it's hard for me because it's like, I'm kind of contradicting myself a little bit here because Jared Allen is the anchor and the rim protector for that team, but Mobley unlocks everything that they can do when they're on the court together, if that makes any sense. Mobley hasn't
been
the
Rob Williams. He's the Rob Williams, you know, well, and that's the high upside.
Jaren Jackson Jr., but like Jaren Jackson Jr. is a better defender than Evan Mobley today.
Right.
And like he just didn't play as many minutes, so
I'm a huge Mobley guy. I think people are getting a little bit out ahead of their skis.
Same here. Like I love Mobley. I think he's going to be amazing, but
he's just like because you get a lot of wow shit, like right? Yeah. Like you see Evan Mobley and you're like, holy shit! Like I do this every time I watch Evan Mobley. I'm like, I'll be like, the people I got to stop with the KG shit. It's crazy, and then I'll watch him and I'll be like, well. It's pretty good, I gotta say. Like, it's pretty good. Like, but he'll also make mistakes. You know what I'm saying? Like and I mean, Jaren Jackson Jr. famously has the foul problems. I would love to hate on Jaren Jackson Jr., but he's a much more consistent, even with the fouls. He's a more consistent defender than Evan Mobley is.
Even if you think the block rate is a little fugazi, having almost a 10% block rate is like almost impossible. And he still protects the rim well. He can defend in space. He can defend multiple bigs, forwards. Like, if we are going based on who the best defensive player is in the NBA, I think it has to be Jaren Jackson Jr. right now.
Yeah.
But you could make the argument for Brook Lopez because of the rim protector thing, because of the fact that he makes them, he's a big part of why they are an elite defense because of his rim protection. And then you could even argue even beyond Mobley, who I think is also like a worthy candidate. You could argue Draymond Green, because Draymond, when he is on the court, the Warriors have a good defense.
Yeah.
They have like a 111 defensive rating. When he's off the court, their defense is dog shit. It's like 119 per 100 possessions. Like, he still makes a big impact. He's been the best playoff defender for a decade now.
Yeah.
And I don't think this is going to happen, because I just don't think that they're, especially with all the off the court shit that happened with early in the year with Draymond.
Yeah.
But like, Hugo of Warriors Twitter was like, we got to get a legacy one. Draymond's only won one before, and
that's crazy.
Rudy's won 3. He was like, we got to get some revenge here.
Yeah.
For Rudy always winning over Draymond.
In Draymond's defense, like that was his award last year till he got hurt.
Yeah.
Like he was running away with it until he got hurt last year. Like, I think he's still that caliber defender. I don't know if this is the right year for that, though, because it has been kind of touch and go. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just, honestly, I mean, I love Draymond. Don't get me wrong. I think he's still the Warriors' second most important player, like with a bullet, like not even close. But what I would say, I'm looking at guys like Bam Adebayo and like Nick Claxton before I'm looking at Draymond Green now. Like, so, Bam's another guy who could probably win.
I would say Bam. I wouldn't say Claxton, just because I think that Claxton's really good.
Yeah, it's a little too much. Yeah, I mean, that's like
he's young and he will get better. And also a large part, like, he was really good when they had KD on defense, but I don't think that he is like good enough to be the sole anchor one guy in a way that some of these other guys can. So Bam has a case, but like, I'm sorry, if people are putting Jimmy fifth. Like I just made the argument for fifth for Jimmy for MVP.
Yep.
And then you also have the defensive player of the year and you're the 7 seed. That just doesn't add up. Like that just doesn't make any sense to me. I guess you could say the same thing about Steph and Draymond, but Cleveland, Memphis, Boston, and Milwaukee are your top 4 defenses in the NBA. For most of the season, it's been Milwaukee, Boston, Memphis, or Cleveland. I think you're probably going to have to pick one of the players from those teams.
Yep.
It's tough because I just think I'm taking Jaren Jackson Jr.
I am. I really wanted to go against. I got to drop in kayfabe. It's probably Jaren Jackson Jr.
He has only played. He's played so few minutes that it's hard for me to like get past that. But like, he's the best defensive player on the second best defense in the NBA, and the only weakness he has on defense is his rebounding. Everything else, he's like fantastic.
And the foul rate.
His foul rate's been a lot better this year, though. He doesn't really foul nearly as much as he used to.
It's still pretty bad. It's not. It's pretty bad. Like it's like right. That's part of the reason he plays 26 minutes a game. Like
I really don't think he fouls that much. He's 3.6, like 3.6 a game. I mean, it's not great.
A game. Remember,
it's not great.
A game.
I know he doesn't play. And his per 36, I'm sure it's close to. It's probably like 5 per 36.
Yeah, that's what. That's the thing. It's like he plays again. The minutes are a real thing. That was when I started going insane with Rob, because Rob used to be the exact same way, and then out of nowhere he went to. Rob literally had more blocks than fouls.
Right. That's the thing, is that Brook Lopez has more blocks per foul than Jaren Jackson Jr. does. Jaren Jackson Jr. has an insane block rate, but he does foul a decent amount. Like, 4.6 per 36 is not good by any means. But like, I'm just thinking like one-man defense. Like, you could make the argument for Draymond or Brook or Mobley or any of these guys. I'm gonna go with the guy I just think is the best defensive player. I'm gonna go with Jaren Jackson.
No, I've been doing the Grizzlies hate kayfabe all year. Unfortunately, I was hoping they would get like a legit matchup so they could be exposed for the frauds they are, but it seems like they're probably going to
get your Wolves.
Yeah, I hope.
Again,
I hope. They're gonna get the Lakers and trounce them, which is gonna suck, but probably. But I'm sticking to my picks. But I would just go with Jaren Jackson Jr. I don't feel particularly strongly about this. I think things we laid out. I just think Mobley's not quite there yet. I think people are letting how good he is, like, kind of impact how good he actually is a little bit. If you want to do Brook Lopez, I don't care. Whatever. Bucks, have your fucking. I don't care.
Sure.
Know that
the Bucks need more awards.
Know that this means that Giannis is fourth in MVP voting if he had the defensive player of the year. This is
how it works.
Yeah, exactly. So
sorry.
If you want to give Brook a defensive player of the year to prove that Giannis needs rim protection and he's a fraud on defense, sure, I'll give you guys that.
All right, so rookie of the year is pretty simple for me. Paolo Banchero is my
Paolo Banchero. Yeah. The Jalen Williams. I mean, look, I get that people need things to read about, and he's really good. But let's be real here.
It might have been Pelton who said it. I can't remember, but I did like the take that it was like best draft pick of the year. Okay,
yeah.
Jalen Williams going 12 or 13 wherever he went. Awesome,
amazing, good.
Yeah, Paolo Banchero is the player I'd want going forward. I love Jalen Williams, and I think he's going to be awesome. I was even wrong in my pre-draft evaluation of him. I thought that I went back to draft night and I rewatched, and I was like, I'm scared because Jalen Williams he looks like a bust. I literally said, I was like, he's a good player and he's good at basketball, but he just looks like a bust. And I was completely wrong on that. Jalen Williams is awesome. Clearly the second best player in this class. Dribble, shoot, pass guy, all that shit. Solid on defense. He's going to be a guy he'll probably make multiple all-star teams. He's going to be really good.
Yeah.
Paolo Banchero is a 6'10" point guard who, even with some shooting slumps, I'm taking long-term over anyone else in this class. And always have,
He's so big. Yeah. He's so big. And he's if you know hoop and you watch the Magic, you go, that guy.
He's the one.
Test. He's an eye test guy. The second you see him, Sorry, I'm a huge Paolo believer, despite not liking him in the draft. Again,
I had him number 1, but I also was like, I only watched the conference tournaments in the tournament and was like, this guy's great.
Coach K coached Duke last year. It was his last year.
It was his
right?
last year.
That is the last
prison.
crime. That was to say that is the last crime he's allowed to do to make me doubt a generationally good NBA. He's had so many generationally good NBA players on his team, and the team he won a title with was the Tyus Jones, Jahlil Okafor squad.
By the way, Tyus Jones, for like the 4th time in his career, is going to lead the league in assist to turnover ratio, I think. And I think that his brother Trey Jones was also in the top 5. So they're going to be loved by analytics for years to come. They get a lot of assists. They don't turn the ball over.
That's a rare small bean drafting team move that I actually liked.
Yeah, I liked it too. They got him in free agency. I wanted the Sixers to get him to be our backup point guard that year. Yeah. And instead we decided to max Tobias Harris and Al Horford and sign Mike Scott with the room exception. So
that's what I'm saying. Well, that's a rare winning move where you go get a better player instead of playing doing your Ponzi scheme with your own draft picks and shuffling that forward. So Tyus Jones, innocent.
By the way, I think Walker Kessler's going to have a nice career. Kevin Pelton, it was gross that he tried to make a case for him for Rookie of the Year. It is just some true robot shit. I'm sorry.
Silly.
Yeah, absolutely ridiculous.
And they know, like, he saw the Jazz like icon, and he ran the Rudy Gobert program like on accident. Yeah. Fraudulent.
Actually,
make these numbers crazy. Like,
by the way, speaking of, shout out to Nihilus Bucks. Speaking of Brook Lopez and Walker Kessler, got mad at me on draft night for calling Walker Kessler the next Brook Lopez. So, it's for you, bud. I mean, spitting. I watched Dash sent me a little bit of him, and I was like, he reminds me of Brook Lopez. He's not as good offensively, but defensively very similar. And I think that he's going to eventually add a 3-point shot. I think that he's good, like the old version of Brook Lopez. I said the Bucks should have drafted him. So, all right. Okay. So, most improved player. There's really only 2 candidates for this, right? It's Laurie Marketing, and SGA.
Yeah, I was just gonna say an SGA. I mean,
I guess you could make the argument for De'Aaron Fox, but he's been statistically
the other guy I was thinking,
prolific before. Like, he's put up these numbers before, they just weren't as impactful.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think those are the biggest guys. I mean, I prefer giving this. I hated when they gave it to Ja Morant. Like,
sure.
And I think SGA, while it's not quite the same, I think you should not give this award to guys who are on a trajectory. You know what I'm saying?
We knew he was going to be all NBA. We basically said it in the preseason.
Yes, we did. Yeah, Bill was doubting him and whatever. Yeah. Laurie Markin and I had completely written off as like almost as like an impactful NBA player, let alone a fucking. He might make all NBA. Like,
yeah, he's probably going to be third. If worst case scenario, he's just going to miss all NBA. Yeah. And so if you look at it like this. You have one element, you have the Brandon Ingram, Ja Morant tier of guys that are just on a trajectory.
Yeah.
And then this side, you have the Julius Randle, Laurie Marketing. Like, wow, we gave up on these guys.
Yeah. Well, by the way, the Julius Randle, shout out to Julius Randle. I cannot believe it's got to be one of the most statistically improbable things that Julius Randle is going to make a second All-NBA team.
He might not, dude. Bill and Russillo both left him off.
Because that's kind of crazy, to be honest. Like,
dude, I said this. I had it written down here. First off, bullshit. They tweak their All NBA. They have votes. Yeah. AD and Sabonis are both available at forward and center, and they both voted AD. Or Russillo voted AD at forward, and he just 100 minutes of his minutes were played at center this year, and he didn't play
100%. Right,
100%. If you look at Basketball Reference, did not play 1 minute at power forward. And it's the same thing that everyone has been bitching about with Joel Embiid and Jokic for 2 years. And they're changing the rules.
Doesn't play fucking. I'm sorry, he doesn't play center. Like, honestly, also, like, if Anthony Davis were on the Knicks, would they be as good? I'm just this season. I'm just gonna say, like, Randall's an Iron Man who played every single fucking one of those games. Now,
until he sprained his ankle, he missed 5 games this year. You want to be the load management guys. You want to be, we hate
Right.
load management.
Right.
We want players to play.
Right.
He played 77 games, sprained his ankle, and missed the last 5 games of the season.
Yeah. There's
played a ton of minutes.
There's no question Anthony Davis is a better player.
100%.
But you cannot be the bitching about guys not playing thing.
Yes.
And pick Anthony Davis over Julius Randle.
Absolutely not.
Insane. No. Yeah.
I totally agree. And even if you make the argument that AD was a top 10 player, and to be fair, AD did play 56 games this year, which is about the same that LeBron and Steph and a lot of guys that are going to make All NBA played. But when we're talking about like cases here, I think that you just have to put Randle. Randle was the best player on the Knicks. Like Brunson's been amazing, but two-way impact, Randle has more impact on that team. And the guard pool's deeper, and Bill included Brunson on his third team because he wanted to include a Nick. You got to include Randle. And I said earlier, like, I don't know if LeBron should make it. Like, LeBron's amazing. LeBron's the greatest player, whatever. Again, he played 55 games. Like, I guess if it's complicated though, because then I would have to leave Steph off. So it's like, it just gets way too complicated. Bottom line, I think Julius Randle should make it, and I think that I think they had Lauri Markkanen over him as well. So I think I'd probably put Randle over Lauri. That's what I did last time, and I think Lauri should win Most Improved Player. But I don't know. I just think that if your whole thing is load management and you're not including the guy that was a two-way all-star and played 77 games and a lot of minutes per game, it makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I just not to mention any of this stuff. Do we go beast mode? Absolutely.
He's fucking driving. He got in the room and he's just going crazy on the mirror
nuts
right now.
Right.
Dewey, stop! I gotta go. Come here. Come here.
Anyway, but yeah, I mean, I just to get back to like what we were saying, I would vote Lauri, just because I like the guys who come out of nowhere. I think should.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna vote Lauri too, and also like Shea's gonna probably win like an MVP at some point.
That's what I'm saying.
Like Lauri, this is probably the peak of his career, even if he continues to be really good. Like, So Cat was pumped up for Randall's Hall, obviously, and load management. Also, I totally disagree that Bill had Drew and Fox as his second team guards. Like, that's wild to me, dude. I just don't. And they actually get votes. So Drew and Fox. I didn't have Fox on my team, and I barely put Drew on mine.
So what is the case for Drew Holiday over Damian Lillard? Like, let's just do the thought exercise. If the Bucks said you could have Damian Lillard for Drew Holiday, I'm sorry, they are packing his bags like immediately. I know Drew is like a legend there, and like whatever the defense, like I mean, it's Damian fucking Lillard. Like I like he scored what did he score 35 points a game or something fucking absurd this year? Like
Dame was on some fucking crazy shit this year.
We're like, if you're gonna be going through like Dame's career averages, or like career, and like look at this year and say, wait, what the fuck happened?
How did he not make the All NBA teams? Like he might miss it because of the team record. 32, 5-7 he did this year.
That's absurd.
On 46, 37.
64 true shooting percentage.
91. Yeah, I mean he's the best non-Steph pull-up shooter in the NBA. Like he's that amazing and is also basically an offense to himself.
Also a clutch fucking, like if the Bucks got him, I would be genuinely scared. This is a guy with 2 walk-off series playoff shots. Like,
and look, Drew's great. I think two-way impact. Drew's one of the best players in the NBA. I had him on my All NBA teams. I had him third team. I had both of them third team, I believe. And I still say that I would obviously take Dame over him. I mean, Drew shoots like 49% true shooting in the playoffs. The last 3 years, even when or last 2 years when they've like won the title. Like Drew has doo-doo mode. Like he can tap into doo-doo mode. And I know that Dame's defense is questionable, but like
you've got Giannis and Brook Lopez. You would be so fine. You would be the most fine anyone's ever been.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
And okay, so
Let's move on to the new award, Clutch Player of the Year. This is De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah, De'Aaron Fox.
Runaway. His clutch stats, he like takes the most points in clutch. He's incredibly efficient. Yeah. He should be rewarded for this year. I mean, he's been fantastic. He's a guy that I was wrong on. I was kind of out on De'Aaron Fox, and he completely proved me wrong this year. Joel Embiid has a case just because of how many he hit like 7 game winners this year, I think. Yeah. He was incredible in clutch situations as well. You saw it at the end of that Celtics games. You saw it at the end of that Nuggets game, Bucks game. Like, he's been awesome. Yep. But he's going to win MVP. So, like, De'Aaron gets the clutch award. By the way, we're 2 hours into the podcast, so I can do this. I didn't want to slander Cade, but I'm sorry.
Let's go. Sneaking it in at the end.
I was looking at clutch stats earlier because I was just like, all right, I'm interested to see what De'Aaron Fox and Joel Embiid. And by the way, this is a very, very small sample. This is like 6 games, I think, like 6 or 7 games that Cade played clutch minutes in. He shot 15% in clutch time.
Oh, no. Oh.
This is such a small sample. You can't take anything from it. But I was looking at it, and it was like 45%, 60%, 54%. And I was like, who the fuck is this guy? And then I was like, oh, my God.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. Oh, no. He'll be fine. He'll be fine. We're on the record, even while slandering Cade, saying that he will probably make an all-star team at some point. But just...
I might be backing off that, but yeah. Okay. If he comes back and he's fine off the injury, then yes. Okay. Zion, by the way, in clutch time, did not play enough nearly, but he did shoot 56% on 3 clutch attempts, average 4 points per clutch, but per clutch minutes per game, I should say. Yeah. And De'Aaron Fox led the league with 5 points in clutch time, shot 52% from the field. It's his award. Yeah. Okay, so 6th man of the year. This is an interesting one. There are 2 candidates. It's basically, are you a eye test guy who's Malcolm Brogdon is the eye test guy this year? Are you the analytics guy in Emmanuel Quickley?
Yeah. So are you a nerd or are you a ball don't stop Chad?
No, in fairness to Quickley, he's also good by the eye test. He's kind of a hooper a little bit.
No. I'm not allowing you to lie like this. Emmanuel Quickley is a dork. He reads books. I saw him playing Pokemon cards. Malcolm Brogdon is a Chad. I've had so many girlfriends break up with me while I was watching the Celtics. I assume that is because Malcolm Brogdon was on the television.
Exactly.
It could also be because I had spent a lot of my money on like video games. Like you can see all that stuff. But neither here nor there. I mean, like in all honesty, it's probably going to be Quickley. I would be kind of surprised if Brogdon won, to be honest. Like I think that just the stats, there's like enough of an edge there with the stats. And I think people kind of, there's a little bit of a sentiment that like Malcolm Brogdon's stats are like a little, not fugazi, but just like that they don't really need him. You know what I'm saying? That like, he's kind of a luxury. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that's what I was saying is like, I think it's funny because Bill said, I'm picking Brogdon because I like his defense. Whereas I actually think Quickley's, we talked about it early in the year. I was like, I think Quickley's pretty underrated, and it wasn't because of the analytics. It's because every time I watch him, I feel like he's a really well-rounded player. He's really good. He's a really good guard defender. Yeah. He's a good team defender. Yeah. He has the ability to run offense occasionally. Yeah. He can be a connecting piece. He can shoot. He's got a good floater game. He's a good passer. Like he's just a really all around well-rounded player. And even with him not being quite as efficient as Malcolm Brogdon, I think that he's more important to his team. So that's kind of what it comes down to for me is like, I think Russillo made the same argument. It's like Quickley just does more for the Knicks than Brogdon does for the Celtics. But Brogdon is really good in his role as that 6th or 7th man. But he's not even the best bench player. It's the Jordan Clarkson, Joe Ingles thing for me. Yeah. We're like,
Jordan Clarkson, or 2 years ago or 3 years ago, whenever that was, Jordan Clarkson was putting up the points and he was a good sixth man. But like Joe Ingles was their best bench player. Derek White's the best bench player on the Celtics. Yeah, and like, if this award really was best bench player, he would have, he would have a better argument than Quickly to me. But like, that's not what this award is. You have to get be a theoretical bucket getter to be even qualified.
That's the thing that's killing Brogdon, is that it's a guy who plays like literally the same fucking position as him.
Yeah.
Also coming off the bench is like one of, I think Derek White is actually the best bench player this year, but he will not get. He won't get.
He
started too many games. He started by the end of the year. He started like 70 games.
Yeah.
So yeah,
quickly still, quickly started. He's in the sweet zone too there of starting some games, but
he started like 30.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I saw people saying like, oh, he averaged 20 points a game as a starter. And like, but like, there's more to his game than scoring to me. Like I if anything, it's possible that if they don't, the Knicks should pay Emmanuel Quickly is what I'm trying to get at here. Just give him his money.
Isn't it crazy that he was like in trade? That never made sense to me. Like, why were you trying to give away Emmanuel Quickly?
I was like, well, he's good. I literally said, I was like, he's basically the perfect third guard if you have 2 star guards. Yeah. Like, he would have been insane on the Sixers backing up Maxey and Harden. Like, I was like, he would have been perfect. I was like, why are you doing this? And then they were like, well, they want more flexibility in trades. And I'm like, why'd you give RJ Barrett a contract extension?
Yeah, like, that's the one. Like he's so much better than RJ Barrett. It's just so funny because like Knicks fans, we're going crazy for IQ, and everyone said like one of my friends was giving my Knicks friend shit for like how much he loved Quickly, and he was like, "Oh yeah, Alonzo Trier 2.0, this is sick." Like, and I was like, "Well, let's pump the brakes there."
I was gonna say, I don't think Alonzo Trier, even early in his career when it was like Quickly would have games where you were like, "Wow, he's awesome."
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure he's always had positive on-offs, which like for a rookie, a small rookie and second year guard is kind of unheard of, and he's improved even on that. Like he's really good, and like Knicks Cavs is going to be a really fun matchup. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Can play on the wing 2-3 again. Yeah. You know how I feel about that. Bear. I mean, I do like that about Brogdon Rosenstrog. What? I think he can play a little 3. I think he can play the wing. Yeah.
He's more. I mean, maybe. I mean, he's kind of small, but. More 1-2, but small,
but I don't know.
He's small bean. Him and Maxey are both a little small bean drafting team. Kentucky guards with their boys.
Is he as thin as Maxey?
Yeah, actually Maxey weighs more.
That's crazy to me. Maxey looks so much smaller. All right,
Maxey is 200. Quickly's 190.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm learning a sleeper build.
He's Emmanuel Quickly
sleeper build. This man is a small bean. I had no idea.
Yeah. So okay. So Coach of the Year is a runaway. It's Mike Brown.
Fucking go. I think I said Joe Mazzulla before the year, but I think I said I was picking between him and Mike Brown. So I'm gonna take my victory lap right now. Because all you fuckers laughed at me.
I did
when I said that Mike Brown was a good coach.
I was wrong.
Yes.
Last thing before we get out of here.
Yep.
You didn't listen to the Bill Russillo pod.
I listened to like half of it. Like
Bill picked Doc as his third coach for Coach of the Year.
So sick.
I actually was like, okay, so here's the thing.
Oh no.
No, look,
don't do that.
I'm not Doc Build. The playoffs are about to start.
Stay away from the Doc.
The playoffs are about to fucking start.
We need a childproof cap for the Doc pill. The Doc pill needs to be in the med box. Only when the alarm goes off.
Listen, the playoffs are about to start. I'm not getting Glenn pilled before the playoffs.
Glenn pill.
But in the regular season, one of the things that and it's the thing that frustrates me the most about Doc is that when the stars are out, the team's still really fucking good. Like they just beat the Atlanta Hawks without all of their starters the other night. And that shit, when we get to the end of the year, we're talking about seeding and who they're going to play, and that shit, it matters. They were like 11-6 without Embiid. They were like when Harden sat, and they had like two of the, like they just had Maxey and Embiid. Their record was really good. Like they were able to overcome a lot of shit this year. They had a terrible start to the year. Yeah. And I just don't think there are many good candidates for coach of the year this year. So I really don't have a problem with putting Doc like top 5.
Yeah. Even though he's a bozo, like this is, I think Joe Mazzulla has a pretty good case just because of how
he'll probably come in second.
Yeah, I was gonna say just because of how weird that's. The jury is still very much out for me whether or not Joe Mazzulla is a good coach. I gotta say I really do not like that we have one play for the end of games, and we've run it 13 times.
Right.
I will say this though, Doc Rivers. I think Doc Rivers has been miscast, and I think what fucked him up was coaching the Boston Celtics. You should not have Doc Rivers coach your team with title aspirations.
Yes,
he needs to coach the Charlotte Hornets, and he will get them in the playoffs. Yes, he will get them in the
Hornets,
playoffs.
the Kings. I've been saying this for like a year. Yeah. He would be a godsend to these teams that are just like, we want to compete, we want to make the play-in or the playoffs. They would love him, but the problem is he keeps picking teams that are like big market, huge expectations, star players, and because he gets outmatched at the top levels, people hate him. And it's like, he's not a terrible regular season coach. Like, he can scrap out wins with that Clippers team, with the Sixers. The Sixers record without their stars since Doc has got here is like well above 500. Like,
he needs less talent. You know?
Yes.
If you put him on the Pistons, they would make the play. You would find a way to be like you hand him that dog shit roster. He's just like, all right, all of a sudden we're running everything through Boyan.
Yeah.
James Wiseman is being benched. Troy Weaver, I'm sticking glue in your the keyhole of your office, and you can't get out of there. And
I do need this though. I need Glenn to win, get us to the ECF or get us to the finals. I'm sorry, Sam. I need to be Glenn Pilled for real because his quotes in postgame are fucking hysterical, dude. Dude, the other day, they asked him, did you see that thing where they asked him after or before the Sixers Nets game?
Mm-hmm.
They said to him, like, what do you, hold on one second, let me see. What do you expect from this game? I believe he said. I need to pull up this exact quote because Doc Rivers on what he expects to get out of today's game. I'm just trying to see the end of the Masters. King, dude. I want to like Doc so badly, dude.
I can't believe he and Ben Simmons didn't get along, to be totally honest. Like, if Doc couldn't reach Ben, no one can. I'm sorry. Like, there's no way. Like,
oh my god, dude. Yeah, it was great. It's so funny. It's so perfect that Doc gives us so many sound bites that people genuinely get mad at that are just like really funny. Like after the Heat game, he was like, "Yeah, it was just some exercise."
That rules. Doc is. I will say, Doc. I do love the disrespect. Like Doc. Doc is so charismatic. That's the other thing that like I watch Doc pressers and I'm like, can't stay mad at you. You're so funny.
Exactly.
You're so good.
He's such a good politician, dude. He's so good at. He just works a room, dude. He's just doing bits, dude.
We need Doc to like run for like he used to be like a Lincoln Project Republican in Texas or something like that. Like, you know, like just. You protect the abortion rights, but you know he also just kind of like he'll cut Social Security or whatever, you know, like that compromise, you know, so something like that, you know.
Doc versus Beto, let's go. All right, we've been going way too long. Let's hop off here, but we will be back later in the week. Join me for the play-in streams. They're going to be a lot of fun, and I'm going to be doing playoffs as well next week. So
love that the Doc Beto riff was the one.
It's just too much. It put me over the edge. I'm sweating. Peace.